Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the LCO for day 3 of the week. We got a sexy looking Maximise here. We've replaced Kitty. We have 2 more absolutely insane individuals. I was going to say insane looking, but they are pretty
We're
crazy.
We're not sexy though.
Batshit crazy.
Batshit crazy. What are you wearing? What's that on the bottom of your shirt today, huh?
Cat.
Oh, it's a cat. It's a cat.
Catching the train.
We got a cat. So, look, we lost one cat. We got another on the set
sad
too.
boy. He's a little sad boy.
Insane. Absolutely
Keeping
insane.
Kitty around.
Max, how you doing? New week, new us. Have you watched the show this week or have you been lacking?
Of course we're watching the show, Mac.
Good.
Of course. Why wouldn't I be? I love the LCO. Basically, the repeat of Monday tonight, right? So we just get to do take 2 of what happened there. Hopefully with some bigger consequences tonight.
Yeah, maybe some longer games as well. People picking up the pieces, putting it all back together again for that second take, that second shot. But of course, all these teams have qualified to the playoffs. Let's see them qualifying again from yesterday.
So how do you escape this Aurelian Soul just farming you up, sitting on a triple? We talk about it being the Zeri show, but right now it's the Quadra show.
They want to give him the fifth.
Man the pentakill on the debut. Make it happen. Come on, Chaz.
There is no pentas in the LCO, and once again.
Baron picked up here by Direwolves, up by 16k gold. And how much more will it be after this team fight? They found 3. They are hitting him where it hurts. We just have more gold than you. You just cannot match us. Can you outplay us? There is Daystar, there is Benvi opening up their account. And Hooper fighting for his life. And he can't even get a pity kill onto Limap. And Kanga are all in on this play. We must deny this dragon at all costs. That they will find, that they have taken, but they're going to lose so many members in the process here. A Cataclysm to try and prevent them from finding that much more. But their health bars are just disappearing.
A crazy day of games coming through yesterday for a beautiful Tuesday afternoon. And look, we've got good news as well. Of course, it was about 40 degrees yesterday. It's back down to almost 30, so we can go outside again without burning to a crisp. How good's that?
Must be nice, yeah. Look, I bet you're glad you're here today, because you would have died on Monday.
Well, I don't know. It was
Melbourne
freezing. It was freezing in Melbourne all week. So
certainly was.
A nice change of pace.
But someone else that always keeps it ice cold and is here to give you an ice cold serving of LCO goodness in terms of the info gathering is our man Tim.
G'day LCOers, it's Carbon and I'm back and I'm here to explain a little bit about what's going on with the LCO Grand Final. Due to conflicting dates with the PCS playoffs, MSI and DreamHack, we've had to be a bit flexible with how we approach the last match of the split. Of course, we hope that one of our teams qualifies through the PCS playoffs into MSI, but if this does happen, it means that our top team will not be available to play at DreamHack for the LCO Grand Final. In the scenario where this occurs, the LCO Grand Final will take place in Taiwan, where the PCS playoffs will have been held. This will occur shortly after the PCS playoffs finishes, and we will be broadcasting it here from the studio you guys know and love. If neither of the teams that we send to the PCS playoffs are able to qualify through to MSI, the silver lining is that we'll get to see them play off in the Grand Final on Saturday the 29th of April at DreamHack Melbourne. But there's more. In either scenario, in addition to the Grand Final, if it happens, we're going to have a full day of League of Legends content at Margaret Court Arena on April the 29th at DreamHack. We've got international names coming down to play showmatch against the LCO All-Stars as voted by the fans. I'm really excited. Some of these names are going to be really cool, and I hope you guys are excited also. See you there.
Thanks, Tim.
Beautiful stuff. It's just beautiful.
What a performance.
What would we do without him?
From Big Carboni, huh? Giving us all the info. Now, look, we were getting that prepared, of course. Did you guys pay attention to what was in the video? Because if not, I can give you a little breakdown.
Break it down for me.
Please do.
Okay, so LCO teams, 2 of them going to be going over to PCS. That's going to be decided by what's going on next week in the playoffs, of course. Those 2 teams that go overseas. If they do well enough to stay over there for a little bit long, because we got clashes with DreamHack, with LCO, they will be playing the Grand Final overseas, and we'll be broadcasting that from the studio here, which means there won't be a Grand Final at DreamHack, but there will be content. But if they get Turbo Goomba stomped by PCS teams, because that could happen, because PCS teams are pretty damn good too, then we won't have an LCO team at Worlds, but we will have an LCO Grand Final at DreamHack, and that's pretty cool.
Thanks, Mac.
No worries.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Mac.
Just in case Carbon with his. But it was, a little bit
However,
distracting. However, look, let's have a quick look at the bracket. Let's catch back up where we're currently at in the group stage. And of course, it is that last day of groups with these upper bracket finals for seeding. Max, you want a quick touch on what went down yesterday and your take on Monday's games and what these teams are going to be able to do going into today's games?
I don't think we want to talk about yesterday. I don't think either Mammoth or Kanga want to relive those moments, but happy to talk about Monday because, like I said before, that's exactly what we're seeing again tonight, right? And I think that the 4 teams playing tonight are basically the teams that we expected to see in the top 4 at the start of the year. So now we get to see, after going back to the drawing board and taking the lessons from that first series on Monday, how have they been able to adapt? Because, Mac, it's a long road ahead. This isn't even the playoffs yet. They're going to meet each other again, you would assume. So how the teams are able to adapt over this long sort of war of attrition is going to be key to finding who's going to actually win.
And look, going into Group B as well, this is what went down. Team Bliss up against Kanga yesterday looked like a brand new team after, losing to the Chiefs in that upper bracket game. But here they are looking to get revenge. Of course, Chiefs is going to be coming in as that upper seed, so they'll get the side select for the first game, and things might play out differently, but I guess we'll see once we get into that game and see if Team Bliss is going to be able to retaliate in this battle for Brizzy.
Yeah, I'm really curious to actually see how much gets revealed in these series in terms of if we will just get a carbon copy of the end result from last time, if really much will change. Obviously, seeding is fairly important. You want to obviously give yourself the best shot going forward to get into that best of 5 to go over to PCS to represent us as a whole region. But you could be versing the same team a few times, right? So how much information do you want to reveal, and do you want to maybe bank as much as you can for those big BO5s?
Yeah, this is like a perfect opportunity as well to have a quick look at the playoffs bracket. It's not filled in yet. Today's games are going to fill it in, but just so you kind of understand what it's going to look like, it's similar to the group stage. But look, the winner from Group A, they're going to come in as Seed 1, and they'll be playing the Group B Seed 2, so the loser of the Group B game today. And then, of course, on the other side of the upper bracket, you've got the Group B Seed 1, whoever wins out of Chiefs and Bliss, up against the loser of that Group A upper bracket final. So that's essentially how it's going to play out. That, of course, is going to be both those games played on Monday. They're still best of 3s. Tuesday is going to be a best of 3 elimination game down in the lower bracket. Wednesday is going to be a best of 5 upper bracket final, which will secure the first team their slot over towards PCS. Loser of that goes down to the lower bracket final, which is another best of 5. That's going to be next Thursday. And that's going to be against, not the loser of the upper bracket final, but also the winner of that lower bracket round 1 game. So it's crazy. And of course, the 4 teams, they're already locked in. It's just where they're going to be. That's what we decide today.
Yeah, and I think, like Skimmy said, if you look at how long this road is, right, you have teams that are going to be potentially playing, best of 3, best of 5, and maybe another best of 5, right? That is so many games to prepare for.
Yeah.
So like Skimmy said, with the seeding locked in today, is there going to be that aspect of teams, they just want to play what they've played before, they want to play what they've already shown and not give away too much information. So it's going to be really exciting tonight to see how much teams are willing to show.
And look, speaking of tonight, this is what your games are going to be. Group A, upper bracket final first. We've got Pentanet up against Direwolves. Pentanet, of course, beat them 2-0 the other day. That's going to be at 5 p.m. 8 p.m, Team Bliss and the Chiefs battle for Brizzy, or what is it, the King of Queensland?
Brisbane Brawl?
Brisbane Brawl. We've got like 17 different ones thrown out on Twitter. Bogan Brawl? Yeah, I'll go with that one as well.
I mean, this speaks for itself.
Bogan Brizzy?
I'm from
Battle
Queensland.
Battle of Bogans,
right?
Hey? I reckon I could fit right in that one. By the way, that's at 8 p.m. That's going to be that second game. No early start, so if for some reason that first game is going to be
Can you
something...
imagine Rays with a mullet? Oh my god.
The dog got knocked out. He was the only one that actually called the mullet, so you can't call it that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point. Look, before we jump on into any more discussion, Max, you picked out a fight that you want to break down for everyone at home because you're a professional analyst. What do you got for us, huh?
Okay, so we have a fight from Monday's Direwolves vs PGG series, and this is something I just wanted to highlight because I think it very much speaks to the ways in which PGG really capitalized on the series. So as we take a look at this initial position here, we see Decoy on the side, possibly wanting to get a flash over, sort of mirrored by Dongy here. But as we play the clip, we'll start seeing Schönfire make his way around the side, lands a blind Q, maybe not blind, onto Praedyth here. Look at how Praedyth plays this. So as Praedyth flashes, if we can pause the clip right here, what I want to notice is that Poltron's W actually misses the Lee Sin as he's ward hopping, right? And that puts him in a position to get kicked into the all of PGG and get absolutely one shot. And PGG have been so good at this in all their team fights in terms of consistently finding that one person and blowing them up. Now, even more importantly is the fact that it's a Viego, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you trade normally in this situation and you have a Viego, you're kind of happy because he gets the lease in, he gets the reset, he's feeling pretty good about himself. But as we keep playing the clip here, look at how Praedyth positions in the rest of this fight. So you could say this is going pretty well for the Direwolves so far, but right here, Praedyth pathing in the middle, right? You see that?
Mm-hmm.
In terms inside the Dragon Wall, that just puts him in range of Violet, in range of Dongi, who are able to take him out. And the thing I want to highlight here really is how close these fights are, right? Even with Praedyth making a mistake like this, sorry, I'm speaking too fast. I need Skimmy to give me some lessons.
You can breathe if you want. You got
I need
time.
Skimmy to give me some lessons. So basically, Praedyth ends up in this position, and as we play it out, right, he is just back against the wall. Nothing he can do versus Annie and Jax. And this is how PGG are able to find fights and capitalize on mistakes, right? After this point, the game is just completely over. PGG just run away with it. So unless Direwolves are really able to fix these and no one is making these individual mistakes, it's going to be really hard for them to take this series again against PGG.
Okay, now, quick question. If you could change something, if you were on this team and you were looking at this as a bit of VOD review, what would you change? Would you change, like, the target prio? Would you change, like, in the moment,
yeah.
Obviously that's quite hard, but what would you take away from this fight?
So besides that Praedyth play, I would say the main thing is the actual positioning on the Dragon. When we see Decoy's clip as the clip starts again, maybe not, I lied. But basically, Decoy is standing in a position where he wants the rest of PGG to run in towards him, right? But the way the Dragon is leashed, it's leashed up the river.
Yeah.
So the PGG never really have to run into that danger zone, as I like to call it. And then Schönfire finds a nice flank, kicks it all off, and then it's just GG from there. So I think that the main thing is just setting up the fights correctly and playing around those objectives to create the advantages that you want.
Thank you, Master Max.
Glad to be of service.
Yeah, that was the breakdown. Rusty, did
Yeah.
you get your tick of approval?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only other thing for me as well is like fights in the river against an Annie composition where Direwolves were suffering immensely because they were grouping up. And that was a fight where they had like a 5-man Nautilus ult, like a 5-man Gragas cask, and they still lost. So that's how good Pentanet are when they actually get going.
Yeah, and they could get going today. But look, I want you guys to get going early. You had some sick bangers in the content department yesterday from the fans. And I want that again. Hashtag LCO on Twitter, also at LCO. Jump on over there. You'll see today's one, and it is going to be your playoffs result predictions. I've already seen a couple of funny ones. Do we have some ready? Oh, we certainly have some ready. So let's see what you guys have been cooking up at home for us. We got Lavina, who seems to be a recurring... I just read it. Team Bliss, Team Bliss, Team Bliss, Team Bliss. They will simply eradicate the competition. No survivors, only Bliss. Understandable. I think there's some bias there.
Bit biased, I would say. We'll have to see because definitely not Bliss based on their last series versus Chiefs, but, you know, we'll see tonight.
Simple question. Who is in the second Team Bliss?
And then the third and the fourth.
Because I know who's in the winning one, but that's a lot of Bliss players. So why not just Team Bliss 1?
What if
Bliss
Bliss,
Academy.
Why not? Just Team Bliss.
Bliss
one?
Challenger.
Bliss just
Bliss
buys
Amateur.
up every org because, you know, Why Not sold enough merch that they're going to have bank for years with code Why Not 10 in the Bliss shop. That there's going to be no other orgs left in Australia. I don't know. I'm just a Why Not fan. Either way, we've got a few more to have a look at here. In the debt host. Doesn't matter if my result is always 0%.
Hey, I can relate.
Yeah, our Monday sucked. We all got 0% on Monday.
Except for Skimmy, right? Who got the Chiefs.
Oh, did you get? Oh, you got
The only
Chiefs.
non-0% on that day out of everyone.
The 50%er, huh?
Yeah, we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we deserve to be on this couch.
You want to break that down for us again?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, I think that's 0% twice now you've actually put in with the submission. It was the caption yesterday about me and Rusty just losing our mind. 0% today.
That's true. 100%, 0% rate.
100% on the 0%.
Consistency.
Insane. We got one more to have a quick look at here as well. Thanks, Nadette, for your submission. It's Rise Unlisted. Go chuck him a follow because he is the biggest PGG fanboy. Look at that. PGG 1 and 2, 3, 4 doesn't matter because PGG apparently going to PCS.
Is this a controversial opinion after all of these? But we send 2 teams.
Yeah.
So
it kind of does
So
matter.
2 does
so
matter.
it does matter.
It does
And Bliss being first and second, maybe we want a second place team in future predictions because we are sending 2 teams.
Well, Rise Unlisted, you've revealed yourself as being the uninformed or just completely unintentionally unlisting yourself from any League of Legends list on Twitter.
It is funny though because like they're obviously rivals whilst they're here on home soil, but then as soon as they go overseas, it's kind of like that in-betweeners meme. It's like, oh, friend, oh, friend, oh, yeah, scrim.
Have you been there? Yeah?
Like that.
In your professional career, you've been there a few times, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about the game, huh? We got Pensinet to talk about first. In the first matchup of the day, they're going up against Direwolves. And the other day, they were out for blood.
Yeah, they absolutely were. Dongy and Violet in particular, I think, both having 1 death each across this week's affairs, which playing 2 best of 3s is pretty impressive stat. I think that basically these guys have showed up in the form that we expected from them. Violet maybe even overperforming from his early split expectations, sort of returning to his previous form that we've known from him. And I think that all across the board, there's really no shakiness that you can see, right? You know, maybe Appy has had some over-aggressive moments, but the rest of the team in general is certainly available to back him up in all of these plays. And I think that across the board, mechanically, it's very hard to beat them. And as we highlighted in those team fights as well, they're exceptional in a 5v5.
Yeah, especially when they've got all cogs turning. Direwolves yesterday, they had that. They were having a little bit of fun. They were almost having multiple pentas, but Chaz got 2 of those stolen away.
That's my silhouette, can I just say?
Yeah,
It is.
Zorinus and Poltron.
Yep.
I said that. I think someone said it was Bios the
I'm
other
pretty
day.
sure
Now-
it's Max, Kissei, Cupcake.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Who's that Pokemon? Well, here we are. Look, by the way,
But
let's
anyway,
talk about
Direwolves.
Direwolves. Let's talk about Direwolves. Skimmy, tell me, what have they changed in the recipe to get a dub today?
Well, I'm really curious to see if last night's win was enough of a momentum booster, maybe a confidence booster, and maybe a chance for them to try out some new tech, right? We've got the Aurelian Soul. We had a phenomenal performance from Chaz in particular. I'm really curious to see if that's enough for them to feel at ease, knowing that, hey, this is the way we want to play. This time our approach up against PGG needs to be a little bit different, because otherwise it's a very outright state. 3 meetings against PGG, you've lost every single time. Maybe their style just beats you every single time. So I'm hoping to see something maybe a little bit different, a little bit more on brand for them. Because realistically, what we have seen from Direwolves is a strong, stable mid to late game. But the early game is where PGG are just so hard to try and take down.
Now, speaking of early game, Direwolves, do you think that they're going to change the comp to try to figure that one out a little bit? Because even yesterday, they were playing some scaling champs, but just managed to get a roll on early over the likes of Mammoth.
I don't think they should. I think what Direwolves need to accept is how they play as a team, where a lot of their last series against Pensinet were kind of just 2 team fighting, teams meeting in the middle. Direwolves are so good at playing pick-oriented. They're so good at playing with their top laner, getting him involved in the plays as well. Zorinus has been a standout, I would say, as far as top laners are concerned through the first round robin of the LCO. So I would like to see him not just be, we're going to pick Gragas in draft. Oh, that sucks. It has to go top lane. You just have to farm for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh no, they've outscaled you. Like that was Zorinus' whole experience in that series. I want to see him brought in more with Direwolves drafting for themselves, not against Pensinet.
Okay, do you give him the counter pick? Is that what we're thinking here?
I don't even know. I think Zorinus, I do think counterpick is very important when you're playing against Chippies. I know Chippies is definitely someone who's going to slam skill matchups, so if you can get a favorable side of that, that's really important.
Yeah.
One other role I wanted to highlight is AD carry, and I think that's probably like my big focus, because what we saw in the previous series was Violet was just playing at another level.
Yeah.
Right, he sort of wasn't able to be matched, and you know, we've had, ever since the LCO was really founded, it's been Violet and Praedyth in all these big playoff series, and I really think Praedyth, you know, Rusty, you were mentioning a bit earlier, he was angry with himself for how he played, and I think that today we're going to see angry Praedyth versus Violet, so we definitely need to elevate that gameplay that we're expecting from these AD carries.
Well, look, let's have a quick look back at all the drafts, all the stats from that last series as well. Skimmy, there's lots of numbers here. I know you like to talk fast. Can you take me through everything?
Yeah, well, Max already mentioned, right, the 1 death between Dongy and Violet. Dongy already had the most phenomenal regular season as well, having the highest KDA. So then to continue that going into the group stage just shows just how strong his adaptation from going back into the mid lane has been. So phenomenal performance. Obviously, we saw massive priority towards a first pick on Annie, and the performance was night and day between Chaz and Dongy on that one, right? His positioning, his flash, incentive to go for those Tibbers, instant blast guns across the wall, and so on and so forth. Quickly touching on the Violet point as well. Obviously, his KDO is through the roof at 34, but the thing for me is his damage per minute is close to 1k average across all these games. And I think if you can get 1k DPM in a game individually, I mean, that alone is impressive, but there's no one close. I mean, I think Kissei comes in at like 700, so just shows you that he really is in a career high right now. So going to be really necessary to try and shut him down, because in the last series, the counter pick was saved for top lane both times. It was used for a Gragas and a Narn, not the most highly sought after, you would say. So leading back to Max's point one more time, perhaps you do save it for the support counter pick and try and really make sure that bot lane, it is going to be a favorable one.
Okay, so maybe the supports get shown a little bit of love. Rusty,
Yeah.
you want to touch on that?
The thing for me as well, like speaking towards the bottom lane, is that we've seen a couple of times now the Draven Nautilus lane looks strong out in its own right. We saw this from the Chiefs as well in their own series, but then at the same time, the champion combo was just handled so nicely by their opponent's comp. And this is a good example of it as well. Game 2 for Direwolves here. They've got the Draven Nautilus. They just pick Kaiser Leona into them, and then they put an Annie and a Jax in the face of this Draven. Doesn't get to play the game. Can't even auto-attack because if he's in range to auto, he's in range to be one hit. And that was his life this entire game, and that's the thing that probably needs to be considered is how we have adapted our bottom lane in the LCO to be a little bit less about just having that outright kill threat, but having that mid-game team fighting and sustain seems to be more important.
It felt like Poltron as well kind of changed up his champ pool for that game to what we're kind of used to. I liked his J4. There was a few nice sneaky things he did in that first game. But then again, the Viego, it was one of those games where I think he got a couple of resets in that game, but if you're not getting resets, if you're dying early in the fight, then you have no pride.
You know what I'd really like? If we do see Lee Sin come out again from Old Mate Schoenfire, then Poltron just slams the Poppy.
Ooh, a little bit of Poppy.
That'd be a little bit sexy.
Maybe. Look, we've got Violet, though, on the line to have a quick chat to for the pre-match. Violet, mate, look, first question, are you going Ultraviolet again today? Because last time you played Direwolves, you popped the hell off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure what to say. I mean, I think I played pretty well in the last series, but I think they were just quite terrible, to be honest.
Okay, and what do you think it is about PGG that has really enabled you to play like this? Because we're sort of seeing flashbacks of like the Violet of old, MVP, just smashing the league. What is it about your teammates that has been allowing you to play this well?
I mean, I'd say a big part of it is due to Scott, like our coach. I'd say he's helped me to relearn the game in like a lot of aspects and regards, like thinking about the game in a broader picture. And I feel like, especially this team, compared to previous teams, I feel like everyone is very open to feedback. We're able to like criticize each other without getting too defensive. So I'd say team environment being very good and having to relearn the game is like has helped me improve my game a lot.
Okay, so do you still have any aspects of when you were playing, for Peace in the past? Did you bring a lot of that into the team and then have to really shake off those protocols to learn it from the ground up again?
Yeah, I would say on 2021 Peace, I just tunneled on like my lane phase a lot, just like the first like 10 minutes of the lane. But now I sort of just don't focus on it too much because I mean, most of the O spot laners aren't very good at lanes, so it's like I don't need to focus on that aspect of my gameplay right now. It's not like the thing that I feel like I struggle with most. So, yeah.
Speaking of O spot laners, you're playing tonight against someone you probably played against more than anyone else, Praedyth. He himself said he didn't think he played too well in his previous series versus you guys. How would you rate his performance, I guess, against some of the better ones he's had? Is he someone who intimidates you or not?
Nah. I don't really know how to say it. I feel like he's like some games he can team fight well, but I don't know. I just feel like he just chokes a bit too much when he plays against me or something.
That or maybe forgot to wake up early enough the other day. Let's see if he's woken up early enough today. Either way, Violet, look, we'll let you go. Enjoy the game. We'll see how you do.
Thank you.
Thank you too. Now, look, that was a nice little bit of insight hearing that the coach decided to say, look, work on your weaknesses. Your strengths are bloody strong, and you don't need them to be so strong, not in the region like this with lanes that you're up against.
I mean, strong confidence to say the least coming out of Violet through that interview as well. He's not afraid of anyone. He just said he's going to come in and he played fine. He never said that he was Ultraviolet. It's just that his opponents weren't performing.
Yeah.
So that perhaps there is a level beyond what we've seen, which is the real Ultraviolet because he was just so solid on Monday.
Yeah. Now, look, anything else you want to touch on there before we shift focus to maybe a different lane?
What lane do we have, Mac?
Why are you looking at me?
Why are you looking at Rusty?
What do I know? Do I know? Support?
Oh,
Eyebrows are going.
again the eyebrows.
That means nothing to me. What is-
We're being held hostage here.
What is happening?
The caterpillars are
The
going
answer was
crazy.
mid.
Mid.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, true.
I thought you remembered who we were talking to.
Well, I did, but I want to give them, I thought you were giving them clues.
Ah.
And that threw
The
me
eyebrows
off.
didn't
I
help
thought
you
you
out,
were
mate.
gonna- I thought
You
it
You
was
know,
gonna be
Chaz, they call
support.
him Eyebrows. That's his nickname.
Do they?
Yeah.
Do they?
Can we ask
Does
him about
Chaz
that?
know that?
He's not here yet.
Oh,
But look, let's talk about Chaz. Let's build Chaz up so when he comes in the interview, he's like,
Okay.
oh, thanks, guys. How good was Chaz the other day, huh? He didn't do anything wrong on ASOP.
And the second he can hear us, do we start talking about Nautilus? We start talking about
Could.
pentakills?
Could.
Oh, no.
Do
Don't do that.
we just start screaming,
what we need
Danny?
to ask is, what did you exactly say to Danny when that pentakill was stolen away? We got a transcript from Praedyth last night. There was a few expletives bleeped out, so we need to know. word for word, exactly.
He did play well though, didn't he, on the Aurelion
certainly
Sol?
did.
He was is the only one we've had so far, and it felt like it was a pretty free Aurelion Sol game, but
14
also
kills.
displayed exactly what it can do, right, and the teamfight impact that it has, which is gross.
Do you think from that performance that's going to warrant a ban out of PGG? Do you think they're going to try to target him at all, or do you think it's not? No?
I don't think you can ban Aurelion Sol. I feel like it's such a waste of a ban because like so many things can handle it perfectly fine. And you have to get rid of things like Caitlyn, Varus, Ashe, etc., etc. They're like mandatory bans.
Yeah.
You don't have space in a pick ban phase for something like a luxury Aurelion Sol.
Yeah. Chaz was getting kind of like put in a rough position by Dongy the other day, right? Dongy was out-rotating them because the other lanes... Yeah? Is that... Off the back of my head, I can't remember because the games went like much faster than I expected them to.
I think it was some rough matchups. I think he was playing Annie into Orianna from Dongy, and then it was Annie into Ryze. So he definitely opted for some short-range champions there. The Ryze was interesting to me because typically with Ryze, you know, you do see that roaming playstyle like you mentioned, but then they had a fight collapse at Dragon, and suddenly you're playing Ryze, who has to opt into Annie's range basically every time he wants to fight, which makes it really hard to play the game, right? So I think that, you know, Chaz has always been someone who, at least in my opinion, has an unconventional champion pool. Like, wanting to play Talia, wanting to play Ryze, wanting to play these picks you don't really see played by too many other mid laners. So I wonder whether today he will go towards something a bit more standard, or whether he'll continue this playstyle and playing for bot as heavily as he does.
Okay, well, maybe he could bring that Nord in. You know, he saw the range on those hooks as
Mid
well.
Nautilus. Let's do it.
Nautilus can't steal your
You
penta.
go for the E max mid Nautilus. Oh, you just won the game.
Yeah, insane,
Yep.
insane.
That's a top lane champion at the moment, actually.
Yeah,
There
that's what I was going
Rotovator's
to say. You were
Nautilus running
saying
around.
that Nord's been getting picked in not support roles
Let's bring it
Yeah.
back into the
and
jungle.
doing okay.
In the same way Gragas can be played with a Rotovator's top lane, Alistar and Nautilus can be. They probably shouldn't be, but they can
But
be.
you could.
I'm not giving permission to anyone at home to even block that in.
You've
but
inspired so many people
it
to
does
grief solo
exist.
queue tonight.
yeah, and I'm not queuing.
Rusty has single-handedly ruined anyone's solo queue experience.
Mine got
on this
ruined yesterday,
Wednesday
Max,
evening. He's done it on purpose, though, to make sure that you guys are here watching these games. You have to rage quit your games. You're like, screw that. Queue's too dangerous. Don't want to be there.
It'll just slam a mid Singe. So it'll just go down to that point, won't it?
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
You know I'm all for that.
Mid-Singe is broken.
It is. This is legitimately.
Just all wins. That's all you had.
Yep.
Yep.
My
Just dub, dub,
promos,
dub.
all
Oh,
wins.
look. Finally got him on the line. Chazzy, mate, how you doing? How you feeling?
Good.
Are you
Doing
ready
good, feeling
to
great.
bust out that A-Sol, maybe clean up one of those pentas you missed out last night on?
Oh, I'm definitely looking to make a resurgence on the A-Soul. Missing 2 pentas yesterday was a bit of a sad time, so today hopefully I can pull that out.
You seem in pretty high spirits tonight. Have you guys sort of bounced back from your loss against PGG before? And I guess what were the main lessons you guys took from that series?
I think we definitely have been having some confidence issues over the last 2 weeks. After our break, we started switching stuff up and scrim results went down. And yeah, I think like I'm a very big confidence player, so once scrim results, like when I'm saying bad scrim results, I'm saying like really bad scrim results. So everyone's mentality was kind of in the gutter. And then this was like our first stage game back, right? Because we missed Peace. So I think we were a little bit rusty, not too happy. Yesterday, now it's a much weaker team than Pentanet, like no offense, but that's just the facts. So I'm not gonna say that like yesterday was some crazy performance by us, but it definitely helped the confidence, and I think we started to figure out more so like what our style is and going back to how we were playing originally. So today we're feeling a lot better. I'm feeling a lot better, and hopefully, I guess my energy can go off to our teammates, so everyone's feeling good, I guess.
Okay, so essentially, the game plan may have completely changed, and this game is going to look nothing like what we saw on Monday.
Oh, 100%. This will be a completely different series.
Okay, love to hear that one. Now, look, want to have a quick discussion about what's going down in that bot lane. Of course, Mark the other day said he wasn't feeling too great. Have you had a couple of words with him? Was yesterday enough for him to get that confidence back and maybe wake up a little earlier in the day?
Definitely not waking up earlier. He's still, he likes waking up late. Oh, actually, he was here at 3 today, so that's pretty solid for him. Yeah, we've all kind of spoken about how we want to play the game, the way we want to draft, the way we want, like, everyone to be feeling comfortable in their picks. So we've been having a lot of discussions there. So I think everyone's feeling good.
Okay, I love to hear that. Hopefully we got a bit of a longer game. At least take us to 3. Look, I'm saying you got to lose at least 1. I want this to be as close as possible. Make it happen, Chaz.
I'm not taking it to 3 today, my brother.
Ooh.
It's a 2-0 sweep.
Hey!
Okay, love that confidence. We'll let you go. Enjoy the game. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Ooh.
Tell me you
The
don't listen to
vibes.
that and you feel a little bit more confident
Yeah.
for Direwolves.
Yeah,
Like
I kind of want to change my prediction.
he's given that energy.
It's not even confidence, it's like happiness as well. Like just a positive, like elated energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's coming in with a whole different spirit today. Look, either way, let's have a quick talk about side select. So, do we expect, PGG coming in with that top seed, they're going to be taking red side?
We do expect that.
Yeah.
Given what we've seen every game, I would expect that. I would expect it to come up right now saying, chooses red.
It's like that, right?
Yeah. Nailed it. Look, Rapsy, look,
That's crazy.
you got it right. Congratulations.
Sick of saying blue. We're conditioned to red side at this point. I don't think there's any reason to go for blue with what we've been seeing. All these like comp counters that exist on red side are really powerful, and all these top laners like Max was highlighting before, being able to play skill matchups, being able to choose the better sides of it. So there's a lot of good reasons to be on red side right now.
Do you think from those interviews we got that it's given any kind of insight into who they're going to be saving that counter pick for?
Hard to say. I know for sure first pick will probably be jungle AD carry. But outside of that, yeah, it's very much up in the air. It could certainly just be a case of saving it for top lane again. Maybe, you got Chippies that wants to try and play like an Ignite Darius, for example, to try and punish. Or, yeah, it could also just be safe for the bot lane. Appy's shown that he will be pretty adept at playing anything.
I do think that's the most likely outcome. I think whenever you're playing on a team with Chippies, like you are expecting a top lane like 1v1 skill matchup, whether that be something like the Jax. And I think Zoranus, particularly when we talked about him getting involved in plays, is it's a lot harder to get involved in plays if your own lane is getting smashed, right? If you're under your turret, if you're having to catch waves, if you're always on the back foot. So that's a potentially an angle for PGG to attack in draft and say, okay, we're going to lock down your top laner in a losing 1v1, and then we're going to be able to just win the 4v4.
But is there a chance that it's going to be a bit easier for people to put those Twitch points on the Dear Fan Vote?
It's going to be really easy to do that,
It's going to be
actually.
super easy, actually. Where do you put them?
I'd say right there.
Yes. Pretty good. Yeah. Yep. That's an A+. And a max tick. Wait.
Thanks.
On camera, it's this way, right? Wait. Which way is the tick on camera?
That way.
This way.
Yeah.
This way. Yep. Cool. All right. No, my.
Twitch chat's beating me in predictions. I just want to say that. So you guys are doing a
Twitch
good
chat
job.
beating all of us?
No.
Yeah,
Can't be.
probably.
Is Twitch chat winning?
I may have hit the point of, underdog picks. I may have hit it.
I think
because
Twitch
I'm
might
just
be
in
beating
You need to
all
get the
of us.
perfect score prediction to catch up probably at this point, yeah?
Well, let's have a bloody look. Let's look at our predictions. Let's see what I'm doing. I have gone for PGG in this game, but after that speech, as you mentioned, it is pretty like, oof. Oh, could go Direwolves.
Yeah, it'd be crazy.
But look, 2-1. We're giving Direwolves a game each. Me, Kitty, and Skimmy. Let's jump on to page number 2. Of course, Max, look, you were the outlier yesterday, but today it's looking like Rusty coming through with that 2-0. Did you hold
Yeah,
off
mate.
until everyone else put their predictions in before you put that in?
No, Max can confirm.
Yeah,
I
he
was
was second.
I was second in. I went straight for it, and I was convincing myself. I almost convinced Max.
He did.
Talking about who I was going to go for in this series. I actually just decided that Direwolves after yesterday were going to be a different team, right? They were going to come into this and look like a reinvented roster
You might
with
be right.
momentum. And it turns out Chaz kind of echoed my feelings. So I am now actually quite confident.
Yeah, and we'll see if that confidence, reeks in the cast, or if you're to
Oh,
get
it's a stinker. Yeah.
Either way, Skimmy, you are currently tied in first with Twitch chat.
Yeah.
So congratulations. But
Oh,
Twitch
nice.
chat, that means that the Dare fan vote's that much more important. So make sure you get those Twitch points on, huh? Or we're all going to be bloody disappointed. Now, it is a new day. Do you think that there was anything that we saw from Direwolves yesterday that might carry across today in terms of the draft? Do you think like there might be some ASOL slipping in? Do you think that jungle's going to be a bit similar to yesterday?
I mean, the Aurelion Soul, yes, it will exist. It will be a factor in the same way that being on red side with a late pick will be a factor for any kind of counter. But showing that they have an option in mid lane, I think, is really important. Because at the same time, like what we're seeing very early mid priority on blue sides, there's plenty of choices that can come up in response to it. Long range champions start to be like those secret OP choices as well. I just like float the word Vel'Koz every time I think of it because it can win most matchups.
Okay, and guess what?
Yep.
It is time for the... Is it a TriCast? Are you guys trying on
No,
the
not
first
this
game?
game.
Two.
Next-
Well,
not this one?
Max is coming with me. Screw you guys, you do your thing. But take us into Champ Select.
All right, let's do it. Let's jump into the very first game. One where PGG were pretty decisive last time, right? You'd have to say. 2-0.
I wish I could explain to everyone at home what we're seeing on the screen directly next to the camera and why I'm not laughing at the viewers. I'm looking at a screen.
They just don't know, so we're laughing. They have no idea what we're saying.
Kitty is not even here in the studio, but her spirit is just embarrassed on that TV.
Ah, dear. Poor Kitty. Always getting flamed. What I will say, though, is Caitlyn's got one of the highest presence in the league. Hasn't been played once, but 95% of her presence just from being banned alone. Yet to see that. Triple AD carries is being denied here by Pentanet. The first pick is the Aphelios. Certainly that's the case of Predator wanting to feel at home. Denied it, obviously, from Violet. The response from PGG, though, would it be as simple as saying jungler AD carry? Lee Sin was phenomenal. Shenfire is an absolute weapon on that champion, and that's not going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, that's absolutely. He was fantastic. Only had to play it twice. Had the 2 games on it, though, and looked very much successful. The big thing for me here, Skimmy, is Aphelios being prioritized by Direwolves stands to my attention, right? Because I think Aphelios is one of those AD champions that's so good at nullifying most of the lane opponents that you deal with, because you just have so much flexibility, and this is an example of it, right? Like, you outrange Zeri, you can stabilize this lane regardless of what your support is, which means you can go for a comp-style support champion if you would like.
Yeah.
Alongside that Aphelios, you often do see things like the Thresh. You can very easily play hook champions, melee champions. If you really wanted to, though, Lulu, really good scaling choice because Aphelios scales. And that's the thing I like about it, right? That flexibility that is there.
Certainly is, as they're going to pair that with the Nautilus and the Sejuani, so a nice front line to get the job started. A lot of CC, a lot of engage potential for them. But it does mean that Violet says you've let the Zeri go through, and he's been a big advocate, I saw from watching back the VODs of the other games, saying that, you know what, why are we playing Draven here? Who cares? He himself also who had said in his own interview, laning phase, not really too phased about it, right? Wants to be a team fight demon, certainly is just that. And Zeri notorious for being one. Partner that with the Leona.
Yeah.
And you've certainly got a lot of lockdown potential. I'm getting flashbacks to that dragon fight, right? The kick into the solar flare.
I mean, absolutely. There's a lot of team fight potential now that Leona has been locked in. I think with the Lee Sin being a pick-oriented champion, they wanted to get something else in the comp. It could be that with this Leona in mind, Pentanet, to no one's surprise, might be looking for more of a team fight-oriented squad. What's interesting to me is that they banned the Jax themselves. They are starting to limit that top lane champion pool. We know Chippy's has things like the Olaf, has things like the Darius, and can very happily play those picks. So perhaps they just want to pressure Zoranus just a little bit more. Even though we know he can play every champion ever, they're not all going to fit the comp.
No, exactly. And so far, I'm actually happy they've not indicated that they want to go for the Gragas. They did hover it. I don't know if I just have something against that. I just feel like Zoranus is better than what that champion can offer. I love to see him when he plays the aggressive champions like the Nada Camille, and so on, right? The bruisers that just give you a little bit more. So we'll see if more targeted bans go towards him, as the Camille is denied away as well, right? So all those split pushing angles.
So is it looking like a Gragas or no, it'd be more of a Scion pick for Chippies if that's where they were going to go, right? The Camille ban's a curious one to me. It feels like a very specific ban away from Zoranus. We know a very good Camille player, but looking at the champion pool that's up, probably the 4th pick here for Penson if you're going to go for 2 top lane bans into a pick and save your mid lane for the 5th.
Always got to ban that all off away as well, right? The tax of Chippies, notorious for locking it in, and especially would be so good here, given the amount of CC that Direwolves have already shown, so paying respect towards it. I'm wondering, because we've barely seen Camille at all, I'm wondering if it's like some scrim tech where they've seen it work, either the teams they've versed or knowing that Zoranus has that one up his sleeve.
And they choose to ban the Jax, ban the Camille, and go for the Gragas, which is one of those nullifying lanes. So that actually does make me wonder if it's going mid, right? They picked the Gragas because it could be flexed between both solo lanes, and now Direwolves have to reveal both.
Yeah.
So we also saw on Monday, it was the Gnar versus Gragas matchup in top lane. Chippies was on the Gnar side of it. He did very well with the pick. As we await the confirmation from Direwolves that all of these hovers will still just result in the Gnar. What do you blind mid here, right? Because you've got this. This is a good choice. It's a longer range choice. I think a bit more stability in the lane itself. Rise is obviously still going to be there, but closer range, a little bit more scaling potentially required.
And on brand. Most importantly, right, which is what we were both really screaming for coming out of the Direwolves. So very much a big fan of it has been Chaz. He played a lot of games of this Taliyah as that 5th and final pick once again will be saved. You'd imagine towards the top lane unless Dong is going to showcase that, hey, I can bring it into the mid. Gonna be a cheeky GP to round out the composition here for Pentanet. It just screams to me just so much team fight damage.
Yeah.
And a quadrant that's just gonna belong to them.
Yeah, so game plan can go mid, by the way. Probably not
Yeah.
into a ranged matchup like a Talia. It's a little bit too impossible to play because she'll push and keep you stuck under your turret, and then it's very pointless. So it is Dongi that's going to be playing this Gragas in mid lane. Again, the purpose is push, nullify, sustain, control minion waves, threaten perhaps with a jungler. It's not a Vi this time around though. Lee Sin Gragas has always been kind of a staple combo. The flash body slam means it's a very free sonic wave as well, and it's almost guaranteed engage when Gragas has flash and a body slam.
Yeah.
It's also not one of those combos where you at any time run a cleanse, right? So it does make it very hard to actually dodge it when the gank is successful. Chaz most likely going for that teleport pathway. And like you highlight here as well, right? Team fight could be the name of the game for Pentanet. It seems to be their bread and butter, their composition, that's what they want, but a lot of that going to revolve around their bottom lane. Get mid-jungle going, yes, bring it down to the Leona. Leona is your gank setup in lanes, and just say good luck to Chippies, have fun on your island, away from all of us.
Because you for sure know that Chippy sits level 6 and he's just constantly looking bot lane saying, is a fight on? Is a fight happening? I'm here, I want an assist, and I want to make sure that we are coming out on top. Well, here are your compositions. It is that final best of 3. Both of these teams already secure into the LCO playoffs. We're now just fighting for seeding. It is the rematch with PGG coming in with a very decisive 2-0 victory last time, having had an extra games practice and a bit of time to reflect, review, and build up some momentum at the very same time as well. Can Direwolves upset that and finally get their defeat really rectified up against Pentanet?
And so the last time that these two teams faced each other as we hop into the rift for game number 1 of this series, we are not 76 minutes in, do not worry. We had probably the slowest match that we've seen in a while between both of them in game number 1. It was very much focused around just getting farm, getting incremental leads, looking for big fights perhaps around objectives, big skirmishes around Drakes and Baron pits. That is where Pentanet were winning. They were just team fighting so much better, setting up for those fights just so much better, and executing. That is the key word, I think, in all of that. They executed just far better than Direwolves did. And so this becomes a very interesting game on one, do Direwolves continue to play that way? Do they just want to continue to play slow? And I think the answer to that is most likely yes. They have no reason to play super fast unless something is free.
Yeah.
And then 2, how do they execute, set up, and plan for these objective skirmishes? Because they've got a 2-3 item scaling AD carry. Same can be said for top lane, same can be said for mid lane. And really good auxiliary members here in a Sejuani and a Nautilus to set up those plays with a Sej ult or a Naut hook. And it's also non-committal, so they can kind of, comparatively to the Monday comp, throw out those pot shots. If it hits, they go.
They can certainly see what happens and not feel overexerted and punished by a misstep, certainly. The one thing that really stood out to me, Rusty, when looking at the stats of these two teams is that Pentanet, without fail in this group stage, all 4 games played, 100% of the time got the first 3 towers. A lot of that I found has come from the fact that they have the biggest emphasis. I think they've managed to get Herald like 80% of the time in their games.
Yeah.
So they really love to pick that one up, go to a winning matchup. Schoenfire 9 times out of 10 is going to get a successful gank off, and they find an avenue to get more map pressure. Hooks on, and that's going to be a case of a little bit of damage exchange between both these supports, but Violet coming out, you'd say ahead, making sure that Decoy is going to be kept honest and have to burn through some of those potions.
Yeah, very small miscommunication there from the bot lane of Direwolves. We might have to hold thought about that as Chaz is going to be pressured in mid. Poltron here.
Poltron's here to back him up, body slam in, Sonic Wave's connected, that's a damaged flick, and that's Dongi gone, but a flash across the wall there from Chaz, and a little bit easier for Schoenfire to disengage away. Damage being felt all across the rift right now.
Trying to help push this wave in is Poltron. Immediately walks back towards mid. They'll see if they can get the reset off for Chaz, and these minions will crash. Decoy finds Schoenfire here. Knows that he's at the wolf camp. Has a blast cone and Praetor nearby.
They certainly are. Ooh, a cheeky flash to try and find that one, but Schoenfire can just ward hop across the wall, not phased. They've committed a lot of members here.
Look at Leona as well. Praetor finds Appy, finds the flank, but the hook hits.
The hook is gone again. Schoenfire has to flash this time, but there is the Sejuani stun. The passive connects, the first blood is found. And so much pressure to say that blue buff, it's not going your way.
And Chaz moves to protect Praetor on the rest of the map as well. Decoy and Poltron have lethal damage on this Lee Sin, who 3 times now has been pushed out of a play, pushed out of the 2v2 in mid, pushed out of his own wolf camp, and then the blue buff where he eventually falls. Stun on bottom.
Certainly is a stun on bottom, and Praetor's in a lot of trouble right now, holding both his summoners. He's just dead. No flash, no cleanse. Thought he was safe enough. And all that good work has gone completely unstuck.
Yeah, suffice to say, with both summoners available, one of them being a cleanse, he has no excuse there. Just cleanse out of the Leona stun or ignite, and he probably doesn't die. Means 2 summoners are going to be used by Pentanet, but they get to crash that wave in. They get a really good reset off, and now they're just winning in that bottom lane. Dial's still happy that they get some kills. Money into the pockets of Nautilus, not exactly a bad thing for these early skirmishes that will continue. But geez, that's really rough for Praetor. He should not have had that happen.
Really was looking oh so good until it certainly was not. And that's going to be a bit of a sigh of relief you'd have to imagine here for Pentanet, knowing right, a bit of an uncharacteristic invade, really, from the side of Direwolves. Looking to try and turn up the heat in these early moments, but certainly they will not mind because the gold has gone exactly where they want it. Violet looking to try and continue where we left off.
Yeah, and that is definitely a Zeri getting an early kill, let alone Violet on that Zeri getting an early kill. Starting to scale up into this one. I think overall point between both of these teams, we didn't really get a chance to talk about the scaling comparatively. Gangplank actually is exceptional, right, as the game progresses with that crit build, especially with Navori Quick Blades running around. Stupid amount of damage can come out of him. Gragas is one of those weird ones. Gragas does scale because he builds ability power, has the Rod of Ages tier build, and becomes just a bruiser, but a really high DPS and consistent DPS bruiser if left to deal that damage, but can be considered outscaled by Hydra carries, obviously. The likes of an Aphelios would still be able to rip Dongy apart. So overall, I do feel like there is some solid scaling on both teams. I kind of like having Chippies on this Gangplank for that extra scaling option, but that doesn't mean it doesn't scale. Can go for the Trinity Force build and can be an absolute menace in side lanes as well. Both top laners can kill their enemy respective carries, and both carries can scale into the game with 2-3 items and look for those team fights. So pretty much even across the board. Which
I suppose really then does just circle all back to the idea of execution. Who can certainly do it better when it comes to those team fights? Certainly from the Dare fan vote, they feel like it still is very heavily favoured towards Pentanet. There was 74% of you saying that it should just be another repeat of what we did see on Monday. They're going to start up this very first objective with Lane Pro. Very easy for 4 members to be here. Ultron not interested whatsoever.
Free objective. Very nicely done. Just the timing game is throwing me.
Gone from 70 minutes to brand new game, yeah.
Drake at 40 seconds? Wow.
It's a guessing game. We never know if it's going to be finished in 20, 25.
Yeah, we'll never know.
When is late game?
Poltron going to be spotted by wards. He's going to sweep. He's going to clear one of them. Actually going to find a second. Of course, clearing that ward in the Drake area isn't going to be too meaningful, so it's good that he actually found a more important one for the Raptor camp. Now that he knows where it is, information is power, knowledge is power. And we'll continue on his merry way. No intent to contest that Drake. Herald within a minute. Which means we're somewhere near the somewhere near the 8-minute mark. There we go, there we go. We're fixed, we're fixed.
Production magic.
I was going to say, surely Rift Herald soon. And honestly, then I looked at the clock again and was like, oh no.
It was about to become a champion conundrum idea of like, guess the game state, guess the time on minimap icons and so on.
But we're good. Production has saved us. Does mean that the team can, as per usual, look for that map flip. You can see right now on the minimap, the side of Direwolves are moving their bottom lane up. Just behind them is Mr. Appy. But because of all of the activity that happened early game as well, no one's been hard farming their lane except for this Zeri, who is level 6.
That he certainly is, but it's a max range hook from Decoy, and even there, with a root afterwards, it's not enough. Far too hard to try and take down a Gragas. My question is, though, we've seen this happen a few times for what I want to say is the winning teams, where you commit so many resources towards guaranteeing this Herald play that they say, that's fine, we'll shove a wave in and we'll just get 2 plates.
And look at Praetor right now, speaking specifically towards that. The way that he has to walk to feel safe, they don't know where Schönfire is. They didn't know where Appy was. And he just couldn't walk there. So instead of collecting the wave in bot, knowing that the Herald was guaranteed, he misses a massive wave, gives up close to 2 plates. We'll get down here eventually, but it does mean that Pentanet get to stick around, right? That Herald was just taken by the jungler. So compared to what we saw yesterday, the way that they tried to use that tempo by showing mid and getting a flash out of Dongy was to come straight back bottom.
Yeah.
But they did the most respectful thing possible, because what if Schönfire was there? He is now.
He certainly is. The bot lane of Pentanet did want to reset, but had other ideas in mind, knowing that Direwolves would return to collect that wave eventually. We're spot on Vision, so we'll just have to crash in another one afterwards. Made to feel safe knowing that Schönfire was hanging around, but same could be said there for Poltron if the gank were to be on.
Very annoying top lane matchup like you're seeing on your screens as well. Gangplank versus Nah, something we haven't spoken about in too great a length. Nah goes for that fleet footwork, wants to get the plated steel caps, but at the same time, Gangplank can kind of just buy a sheen, walk up to you whenever you're in mini Nah form and just press Q when you lose. You can win protracted trades playing at range, right, with your hyper procs. And you also have the opportunity to push pretty hard once you hit Mega Nah, but there is clear windows where Gangplank can punish you if he's playing correctly and if the Nah feels afraid.
Both have actually had some pretty phenomenal Nah performances already, so should certainly be at ease knowing what's capable, what they'll be looking out for. And what might occur next here is a second reset, means that Violet really is, for the meantime, not going to be at much of an advantage compared to Praetor, who can maybe find a moment to try and strike back here. Second Dragon won't be too far away, and that does mean that jungle pressure once again swarms into the bot lane. That is the 2-man knock-up, the Moonlight Vigil as well. Violet forced a double flash. With all those summoners being burnt, he wanted to be aggressive, it's just not possible. In comes the Weaver's Wall for good measure, and sweet dreams to Violet. The kick away, a distant afterthought, a little bit too late, as the seismic shock brings them back into the minefield, and Direwolves will find 2.
And Praetor does actually find a whole lot of DPS in that team fight. It is a different story when the reinforcements are here from the Direwolves squad. Poltron's in the area, and Chaz, much faster than Dongy this time around, right? Uses that Weaver's Wall, gets into the play, and is the difference, is the swinging factor in this skirmish in bottom lane. Zoran is just chucking the ult out because he can, wants to reset, presumably. It's a low cooldown anyway. We see this one more time. Appy goes in, finds Decoy, and just like that, they turn with zero hesitation onto Violet. Has the bone plating, could have been one hit potentially without it. And they're kind of stuck in this situation now, right? But it's a 2v3. They realize the reinforcements are coming. The kick's good because it does stun Chaz, knocks him airborne, but still gets the flick, still gets the kill. And then Schönfire uses those wards to get himself out alive, or he would have been another casualty of that skirmish.
And is there any surprise whatsoever that bot lane is the focus? Knowing that you need to make sure they keep this theory at bay.
This feels like a Direwolves game though, right? Like compared to what we saw on Monday, this feels like Direwolves are fighting fit. They're making plays, they're sacrificing Drakes with intent. They're going to summon the Herald top lane, try and take a full turret for this one, depending on how Pentanet play this out, right? They're playing for their AD carry as best they can to compensate for the fact that they roamed for the Herald that they went up to get earlier. This feels like much more stable Direwolves that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, and it's always one of those interesting terms, but it looks like they're, this time around, not playing to lose, right? There's so much confidence in their aggression as to this is the play we're making, we're committing numbers to it, and it is going to work. So let's see if it continues in that favour, because that was a pretty sizable advantage for them to find as a result of that kill. Our lane flip into then turrets found topside. The first one of this game, of course. Now up by about 3k.
And how exciting for the league as well would it be if Direwolves were to win this game, regardless of who your favourite team is, regardless of who you're a fan of. If Pentanet beat Direwolves, Direwolves come back and beat them, and suddenly we ask the question of who is the best team in this league. Chiefs have been losing games to, dropping games to Bliss, even though sometimes they look like the best team in the league themselves. Game 3 of that last series was a good example of it.
I don't mind it. Honestly, I don't mind the uncertainty, especially going towards the best of 5, where it's like, this is it. This really is the chance now to showcase who is better. You've had to be in peak performance for such a long amount of time, but this is the series that will matter the most.
Exactly, and I mean, ask the question, who is the best team in this league? That's so hard to answer right now, and I think that's very exciting coming into playoffs. now that we have our 4 teams locked in, we're going to see a whole lot of these teams facing each other. And I like that a lot.
Certainly is. As much as it can be nice to see the perfect scorelines of a 24-0 split. Certainly for a entertainment purpose. Always means the narrative can be built up to say, what will we see today?
Mate, we want them in the trenches. We want all these teams struggling across the line. That way the best team may come out on top, or the most deserving, Sejol.
Oh, we're on. Appy is in a lot of trouble right now. He doesn't have a flash, and he is completely cut off from that mid lane. Beautiful Weaver's Wall, buying time as much as a Glacial Augment Leona can do. But eventually Chaz will take him down.
Actually caged in the river. Just stuck in the river. No way out, no safe space, no flash to get out. And eventually he will fall. Second Herald coincides with the timing of that pick. The hook just goes wide there, but Schönfire respects it and flashes just in case.
Wasn't taking any chances.
No chance.
Just like that, second Herald guaranteed here by Direwolves. A complete flip of identity from the first time these two teams met, with PGG this time actually electing to try and go for an early soul point.
The big question here is when Direwolves choose to contest the next Drake. If you give away one more Drake, it's probably because you're going to summon Herald somewhere. You want to break open the map, but you've already done the top lane outer. So you'd be in close proximity to the Dragon either way. So this might be one of those situations where in 1 minute and 30, you will see Direwolves save the Herald for when that Drake's about to spawn. The second Pensnet commit themselves to it, Herald gets summoned, and they just give them a bit of indecision to deal with. We're going to contest this Drake, but we're also going to have a Herald taking mid or bot lane.
There we go. This time the cleanse is used. This was a nice Gale Force afterwards. Has to wait to that, obviously. Leona's one of those annoying ones where you can't use it too early.
Yeah.
But this time is not going to make the same mistake getting caught out on his own.
Decoy still had Dematerializer 15 minutes in. He's certainly been biding his time looking for those cannons, but has got the full Evan Frost. I think that realistically, you look at the items right now across the board, both teams are pretty poised to skirmish. With the exception of maybe Appy, who doesn't have his Mythic, but the rest of the team is quite strong. The Rod of Ages, however, is a stacking item. You know, the Essence Reaver is really nice and useful, and so is a Gangplank Ultimate if neither top lane is in the skirmish. But it's not a fight mandatory purchase.
No.
The Shield Bow is really useful for skirmishing, and Violet with Summoners up can go absolutely crazy in a fight for sure. But I think Direwolves will feel so strong right now, this will be a fight they will take. This will be a Drake they will contest.
Knowing also just how strong Chaz is, right? Unsealed Spellbook, currently with the heal active as a stopwatch with Leandries too. So the DPS and the survivability is going to be through the roof for him to try and cut off an angle.
The important part, though, is we set up for a potential fight at this skirmish. I don't know if Pensnet have to go for this. They may feel like they want to because it's their third Drake. They can threaten a win con in the game. No cleanse on Praedyth, so is killable.
Yep.
No cleanse on Chaz, but does have that flash. This Leona can find immense value if there's an ult thrown from Fog of War, or a Lee Sin Q kick combo, right? Will force those flashes out. So that's why I look at Appy first and foremost to see what he can find.
Does what he does best and finds an angle unknown to jump on in and hit the massive explosive cast. So far, Dai will start things up. Zoranus ticks over into Mega right now, has flash if he wants to pounce in to hit that slam. Moonlight Vigil goes out, and it's going to do a fair bit of damage, only onto one target particular, Schönfire. But that dragon is gone. Cannon Barrage committed, Zoranus jumps in, one-man slam, job done. Flash out, life intact, living! Finally falls down as Appy commits his life for it. He wanted it, and he will find it, but Violet is getting excited. Jumping across the wall. You can have your dragon, I'll just have your team instead.
I mean, Violet does go for those kills, but still Chaz and Praedyth are alive. What looks like a really good fight for Pensnet on one front is still the carries of the opposing team of the Wolfpack persevering, pushing through and getting those kills back themselves. This is one of those skirmishes that ultimately wasn't necessary, Skimmy. It's one of those fights where you've got the Drake Direwolves, they're happy, they got what they need, but they're about to lose their Mega Gnar on Zoranus, and he's got an angle on one potential kill if they're really going to look for it. And I think it just gets the better of him. You know, the shurikens are there for Praedyth. He's got white weapons. It's perfect timing for this skirmish. They don't have to, but they hit the Nort ult, they hit the Gnar ult onto a single person, and then they group into a choke point against an AP Gragas, a Zeri, and they just get completely lit up. However, they still survive. The Aphelios is still alive. Chaz was literally untouched just dealing damage, throwing rocks at people, and they still come out with an even trade, Herald in hand, and Drake secured.
That they certainly do. Deny the early soul point win condition there for PGG. Find yourself a successful mid-outer and upset the balance of PGG's strengths, right? Maybe
two?
find 2. There's 4-0. And PGG a little bit stunned because that usually has been their namesake.
And Dongy and Chippy, both with teleport available. Hook's going to connect here onto Schernfire. I don't think this is going to result in some kind of massive fight just yet, but posturing, looking aggressively. And a collapse now comes through with a teleport, but the outer turret's still alive here, Skimmy. This is hard to do.
Dongy, what are we looking for here? Cannon Barrage just burnt so defensively, so I mean, no matter how advanced he walks, it would have been a little bit too much to try and bite off there. So they've tried something, having hit level 11, getting a TP for it, but Divals just simply walk away.
Yeah, it felt like maybe Schernfire was calling the shots on a dead play because it did feel like they were forced to teleport or collapse and just a little bit late. It could have been an angle if they did that maybe 3 seconds earlier.
Sure.
Right, but that angle was gone by the time they made the call. They made the decision. So 2 turrets fall in mid lane, and Direwolves, 5,000 gold lead, 2 items done on their mid laner. They are sitting so pretty in regards to the carry strength, and that is now reflected through that total gold. They are top 3 on the list.
Yes, a bit of a canyon now starting to form here, which is certainly favouring Direwolves. And you heard how happy Chaz was. Maybe that really is the difference maker for them. The fact that they can come into this one, having already taken them down, nerves shrugged off, cobwebs cleared. A bit of an understanding as to, okay, second time lucky. So let's see if they can try and sustain this performance, because they now find themselves up close to 7,000 gold ahead.
This is one of those games where, you know, earlier on we discussed the potential scaling choices. Lee Sin's not one of those champions that scales, right? Its mid-game is just kind of killable and just looks for those 1 kicks to maybe survive after the kick connects. But now is a 0-2 Lee Sin. Doesn't even have boots completed, just that magical footwear sitting there. You would say is just weak, right? A Sejuani of equal gold is just going to be more useful when it comes to a team fight, because you can have the same effect with your ult, but still be a tank. Still have those follow-up stuns, still have that follow-up utility. As the game goes on, Lee Sin technically scales really hard because that 1 kick can be more impactful. Because if you pull a carry in, you're taking away so much more money off the enemy team. But as it stands, it does feel like Schernfire is going to be in a more difficult position than he would like, with a lot of carries that are fed that will one-hit him if he goes in at the wrong time.
Yeah, it definitely feels like this is a game state now, which is all about vision control. Really the ability to find yourself in situations or positions, mostly, where Direwolves were unaware of, not prepared for, and get caught out as a result of. So, Summoner's obviously going to be very important to track too.
Dial's playing very patiently here. Decoy not sitting with Poltron, has been positioned more to protect the AD carry of the team, and Praetor was just nested under the turret. Didn't want to reveal himself. So that means he's going to be really late to walking the river if he does, but vision placed by Poltron will spot that Pensinet were already there. And once again poised in the river, once again grouped in the river.
Yeah, there it is. That is literally what we just mentioned. The vision toggling. Poltron's been called out, but he's managed to live, and Schernfire, unfortunately, is not afforded the same fate. Junglers with a focus, and only one survives. Barely.
I mean, Poltron very much caught out of position, mispositioned, but then Schernfire pulls out an act more egregious than even that. Another free follow-up pick. Objective is secured. Hook hits.
It certainly does. Moonlight Vigil coupled with that, and Appy is going to take so many damage hits from those chakrams from a million miles away. You think you've managed to get away? Well, here's the seismic shove.
Chaz brings it crashing on back home. Finds another pick for them, and fantastic work from Direwolves consecutively. Violet tries to stop the recall. Will get denied by Zoranus standing in front of it, tanking a bit of damage. For a moment there, I thought maybe they would consider going towards the Baron after multiple successful picks, but I don't think they're confident enough yet with Violet still running around. But still building up very nicely for what will be a Baron-based map from here on out.
I'll tell you what, you would not mind having all those Infernal Dragons stacked up one after the other. It all starts here with Poltron just completely unaware, but managed to get himself out.
And I don't know how he's unaware, given that they cleared a control ward seconds prior. But at the same time, Schönfire just gets hooked, just gets flash hooked and locked down. And speak of the devil.
Well, there he is once again, making amends. Both the junglers still a little bit too much influence on this game. Goes the right way. Jukes out what would have been another flip back into the minefield.
Flash from Chaz was a lot, wasn't it? They really wanted to kill
feeling himself
Schönfire.
today, isn't he? 4-0-2, he never left. After last night, I think, what was his KD? It was like 16-2? 16-1?
I think it was like 16-1. It was something crazy.
It was hectic.
But now he is a flashless Taliyah that is 4-0. Zoran is now going to run down Dongi. This is one of those lane assignments that probably isn't what Pensinet want. They would rather have the gangplank here to clear the waves. Nah can run away with this in a 1v1. Especially with Baron on the cards, right? The Gnar and the Gragas. You would presume a weak-sided here. Baron does get hit by the Taliyah. Pensinet not willing to face check it just yet. They've got to deal with this wave in mid. They saw Praetus pushing it in. Very much just a very sly, coy game of map movements here. Everyone wanting to push those waves in. No one wanting to get caught.
Yeah, rotations at this point really are the name of the game, aren't they? Especially now that PGG will have the TP advantage. Chaz not a single summoner available for him. So if Direwolves are the ones starting up that Baron first, can they draw the attention of PGG elsewhere? Because Zoranis is being a pest right now, still laning into that Gragas.
X-Flash hook connects Violet's here though, has to be careful.
Certainly, yeah, he's ready to back him up. There is the lightning crash, Violet's ready to go. He's going to get knocked up by the depth charge, which is ultimately going to force that cooldown to go to waste. And that's a fair bit of damage for the Zeri.
Yeah. I mean, Poltron throws the ult out, has that extra healing as well for the rest of his team, so Decoy gets assisted just a little bit, and it was a Hex Flash ultimately to go for that play anyway. And back to base they go. Just seeing what they can find, right? Being opportunistic, just looking for angles. No one committing to the 5v5 yet, especially when you've got Drake number 3 for both respective teams up in 1 minute and 45 seconds. You're looking to see if you can either get a pick, get a summoner spell, right? Those flashes can be really meaningful for future skirmishes. Just seeing what you can find as Chippy's with the support of his team will force this turret.
Yeah, the first turret of the game for Pensinet, 26 minutes in. They've finally been able to break the base, the stalemate. Let's see now then what happens, because there's been this long sought after Baron dance, but I feel like it's really going to come back to the Dragon. That's what we're biding our time for here. Lane states need to be attended to, but another minute, that would put Direwolves on 3 Infernals in a row.
I mean, Pensinet ready to fight this one, 100%, right? Rod of Ages stacked, Gangplank's build, he's got those cloaks. He's got his Navoria Quick Blade straight into the crit chance. Doesn't need it to proc in the way the old IE would work, but has crit chance that amplifies the ability damage. All of his items will build out of that one. Infinity Edge is probably the last remaining thing they really want to get into the hands of Violet before a fight were to break out. But I don't think they have the time to really allow that, which means that Direwolves, especially with 3 items on their mid lane, are feeling exceptionally strong. Stopwatch also there for the Taliyah. Could be the difference maker.
It certainly could be. You can see Poltron waiting. Decoy finds the hook, not the target they're after. Decoy going to take a fair bit of damage as a result. Poltron still seizing the moment, and Zoranis is now going to tick over to Mega.
Early though. Drake up in 7 seconds. Pensinet shouldn't face check. Zeri W's confirms that they're in the bush. Gragas can throw Qs and confirm they're in the bush. Chaz is going to cycle through his barrier because the flash is up in a second. And Decoy is split from the herd, but the Drake's just gone.
The Drake is gone now. Can PGG find a kill as a result of it? They've gone for the kick. Solid blade damage onto Zoranis. A very squishy mini means he will fall victim first. Chippy's, his job is done. Very low on HP, and the Cannon Barrage had to be burnt too. And I think they just disengage afterwards because Direwolves, as a group, went together.
Yeah, really nice pick actually. Well done by Schönfire specifically to find his mark. Leander follows through with the crowd control. Kicks him into the rest of the team, and Pensinet, they find an opportunity, they find a pick, they find 20 seconds without the top laner of Direwolves here, but this is a hard force if they go for this Baron play.
Is this the fight you want? Zenith Blade misses, flash from Dongi, explosive cast, Poltron separated in with a Sonic Wave.
That's Schoenfire desperately looking for his first kill of the game. He misses the second Q. There's the two-man knock-up from Decoy. Never really interested in a fight. Much
Chippies.
more a disengaged. Chippies trying to solo Chaz a blast cone, which is perfectly positioned. And a green weapon from Aphelios, which barely scrapes by him.
Yeah, that sniper just right on his backside, just misses that one. Could have been a potential kill. Zoranus teleports in, and he is right in the middle of the action if they were to look for any kind of Barons themselves. But the teleport ultimately does get wasted by the top laner of Direwolves. They did so well to hold on in this situation, right? They have to face check. They see the teleport, they go into Chippies, they pressure him, the hook just misses. Now they get in a choke point, and that's what Pensinet want. They hit the cask, the flash body slam just misses Praetus though. Could have been lethal damage, could have been a Baron, right? But he survives, able to flash away. And then Poltron with no HP to his name gets protected by Decoy. Chaz gets flashed on by Chippies. And this Q, geez, I mean, it hits him on my screen. Enemy Aphelios hits that, is usually what you'd say there.
Crazy, crazy, crazy scenes there. The Chippies is able to keep himself intact. Decoy has actually just gone back to base and picked up his second item, which is the Anathema's Chains, which I have to imagine is going onto the Zeri. It's much lockdown to really prevent the slippery nature of the champion.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be going onto the Zeri. Hook hit.
Gone. They found Appy. Instantly turns golden with the stopwatch. Is that enough time for PGG to turn around? The Solar Flare connects. It doesn't stun, but it definitely slows. Glacial Prison also tries to ward off Pensinet as they're still stuck inside their side of the jungle, leading into the Baron. Both teams flirting with their health bars, showcasing just how much lifesteal they have.
Look at the damage they're doing to the Baron buff here as well. Direwolves really trying to force the tempo here on a Pensinet, keep them around. Another hook hit.
Yeah, that one maybe not the best angle, but look at the amount of CC knock-up. Chippy's in so much trouble. Locket burnt. In they go. Someone is trying to find it. But he's had to hold onto his ult for such a long time. Violet right now is literally 1v4 in the river rather. He's taken down Decoy. Now 1v1 up against Praetor. This is the fight you want to see, and this is what we're getting. It gets taken away there by Dongy as the backup is there. And the Baron continues to spectate all this wonder, all this fighting, as it's not done just yet. Poltron forced to jump across the wall, now routed out of the river and into the top lane is Chaz. But he gets himself out with a flash.
Zoranus on vision here as well, so they know exactly where he is. They can collapse onto the Gnar.
What does Zoranus have left in the tank? Nothing. Once again, resigned to mini form.
I mean, could have perhaps disengaged topside with his team, doesn't know that he's on a ward and just face checks death. Direwolves and Pensinet with a very dicey skirmish, and result favorable for the Pensinet camp. It feels like as a result of Violet just snapping ankles, hiding Praetor out and getting a kill onto the carry. Huge damage at the forefront of this, and look at Zoranus. If this ult comes off before a Lee Sin kick,
insane.
I mean, that's a Penta, right? Like, that's just a wipe, but the kick comes in, it's really clutch. And then the fight separates. Poltron goes topside, gets cut off by his own Talia, and then the AD carries just have to duke it out. But Violet moves too quick. Praetor knows he's stuck and has to try and fight, but lost the stacks on his chakram, lost the stacks on his weapon.
I missed that kick. Honestly, for me, almost played a day that alone, because it really would have been the most insane Gnar stun.
Game-saving kick, for sure.
Absolutely. And speaking of the game itself, it feels like we have completely forgotten that these side lanes exist. Fight for the Baron at all costs, and if that doesn't happen, then we just wait for the next dragon to spawn. That is up now in 25 seconds. Direwolves playing for the Infernal Soul with 4 stacks. I mean, it's just too much damage.
Yeah, they're going to get way too much DPS from that one. And I mean, a single blue weapon, Infernum ult from Praetor would wipe them. 3 items done as well for the AD carry of Direwolves. You saw how much damage Violet's doing to him still. That Infinity Edge is done for the AD carry of Pensinet themselves. Zoranus about to hit Mega Gnar, and we just continue to look for these fights, continue to look for these angles. He's ticked Mega, the Drake is up, and Direwolves have entry into the river. Summon is still available for most people here, though, except for the Aphelios for 10 more seconds. You can see how afraid they are to walk in for now. That means they'll lose Mega.
Hey, well, that has been their downfall in these last few fights, unfortunately for them. Dragon is going to get started here by Poltron, maybe not of his own choosing, because it is going down very slowly, and the Dragon has been that 6th member now, assisting PGG in their attempt here.
Doesn't want to queue out of the pit, but is slowly taking damage, and the second he does, Pensinet kicked this one off, has a blast cone if he wants to get back in. Praetor separated. Zoranus not mega yet.
Yeah, Zoranus needs something to attack. He needs to build that
Look at
rage bar
Dongy.
up as quickly as he can.
Look at
I
that
don't think
Gragas.
PGG will let them. Dongy on the flank, spotted out here by Decoy.
Ooh.
The Dragon goes the way of Direwolves. That's Infernal Soul. And can they use that damage now to get themselves out of the river? Chaz finds one, removes Dongy, who was caught from the very get-go in this fight. And very close to not being hit by that Sonic Wave is Decoy. Whether or not Lee Sin really wanted it is another question altogether.
Still chasing, still hunting, still looking is the Direwolves camp. The
blind hook on the bush. They face check Chippy. Ceaseless taken two with him
Violet.
to the grave. In we go for another. Schönfire lagging behind. And honestly, Chaz's Talia at this point is just doing far too much damage that he can just take anybody down for the delayed ace.
Yeah, I mean, Chaz is just putting in that work. He is absolutely winning. But look at the damage done by Praetor as well, right? 6.3k from the AD of the Wolf Pack. Now, Pensinet, that was a shambles. That was absolutely a mess. It became frantic. The communication, it felt like it wasn't really there for them. One player's recalling while Chippies tries to perhaps defend him. Violet tries to be a hero. But when all's said and done, they get themselves the Baron buff. They're going to wait for respawns as well, which is what you're seeing in the bottom left. Watch this again. Dongy just gets Nautilus ulted before he can make the full play, and they're able to flash out from this. The Smite secured Schönfire, low HP and out. But he's stuck. Praetor now gets the free hit. Decoy gets to play zoning, and Chippies is sitting there with the kegs, but he's only hitting the carries. I mean, this is dicey, but they can disengage from here. Violet's strong enough. But Appy's going to recall right there. Chippies finds a control ward and says, for no particular reason, this is my moment. They assume he's in the bush because of Zoranus on the flanks. And then Violet dashes forwards straight into being one hit. They stop kiting. They lose their heads for just a second. That's all it takes.
Yeah, separate ideas as to where they wanted to reset from. And as soon as one person makes that call, everybody else, perhaps as reluctant as they were forced to follow suit.
Yeah.
And that really is now starting to create a bit of a divide here in our game one. 8k up with the Infernal Soul picked up with the Baron buff too. And it looks like a completely different Direwolves to what we saw on Monday.
It certainly does. And this is a Direwolves poised to take out this first game. They still have to try and get through this unstoppably powerful ADC in Violet. Still has that flash there, but with a Baron buff in hands, with an Infernal Soul in hands, they have the makings of playing more than one lane very easily.
Schönfire trying to find a way in from the underside there as the top turret will fall on down. Direwolves going to use a 4-1 attack here to try and get as much damage towards these turrets as possible with the Baron buff still available for use.
Cycling through the green weapon here though is Praetor's green-white makes him quite powerful right now when he places those turrets down. And meanwhile, Zoranus, there's no way Dongy can deal with him. It has to be Chippies that goes there, but Chippies is also a bulk of the team fight damage now when he hits a cake crit. Can Solo win a game? Can Solo win a team fight by himself if it connects? But there's just brick walls standing between him and the carries.
Yeah, and as a result of those assignments, it does mean that Dongy cannot hold off this Gnar. Mid inhibitor will be the first price for them to pay, as the second will follow very shortly after. There we go. And I would say now that Direwolf's job is done. The Baron has been very successful.
I can't remember a time in this game where Decoy's had his actual flash. He's just a Hex Flash hero right now. There was a fight at the Drake where he just got flashback. He blast coned into the pit and then flashed out because they were losing the fight. A total of 2 seconds of flash up time. It's the only time I've seen him have it.
So he doesn't mind using when needed. It was very good, obviously, to have the Hex Flash available. Hasn't really changed too much, though. Has that top 3. You see Violet very close to trying to edge his way into the top 3. But it's been certainly Chaz on his throne for what feels like, I want to say, the last 10, 15 now. He's been farming up an absolute treat. 8-0-3.
70-odd CS ahead of his direct opponent there as well in Dongy. Living his best life is Chaz at the present moment. Certainly putting his foot down in game number 1 of this best of series, saying, I am the carry, watch me work. As now, they threaten the last remaining inhibitor lane.
Buron needs some oranges and he's A-OK, or is he? Because where do you run to? It's just too much to try and deal with. His flash was down for about another 10 seconds there, Rusty. Really is an unfortunate bit of timing for him to try and face
as the game is being held on a knife's edge. This is that third inhibitor to try and take on down. And Direwolves want
Violet.
that systematic win. Flashing out of the solar flare, but Violet's got the ult, so he's found that first kill. Can he find a second? Predator answering back with the blue weapon. Moonlight Vigil trying to do some splash damage in a cleave situation. He's pressing forward. Look at the shield, the lifesteal, disgusting. Double kill fan for Zornes. Doesn't care if he's not Mega. He's finding his revenge in Mini.
And they just get it done. Dials now only Violet left standing. No real means to stop them from pushing forwards. Praetor gonna flash in.
He wants to send a message. It is the battle between two phenomenal AD carries. Violet saved by the fountain. The region a little bit too much to try and get through. But it is Direwolves finally getting their first win into Pentanet this season.
And if you come into today and you talk about the confidence of the Direwolves, you heard it from Chaz himself as well in the interviews. Perhaps they weren't in their zone on Monday. Scrims weren't going well, practice wasn't going well. They beat down an easy 2-0 yesterday and come into the rematch feeling like a brand new team. And that was a brand new team. You can see all smiles, all happiness.
Yep.
And I mean, Direwolves are back, to put it plain and simple.
Completely back. I mean, honestly, there's a reason why you can see they were the first seed now, because that showed us just a whole different take on what we'd seen before.
Yeah, completely different gameplay coming through. Chaz looking like the Chazington of old. Man was doing some work all game. Deathless as well. I think the only one that went deathless for Direwolves. But yeah, just pumped damage. There was multiple team fights where he was just completely untouched and just coming out, maybe not with the top damage, but up there with Praetor as well, who had Aphelios, managed to get Aphelios in the draft, and like against Mammoth the other day, made it look really damn good. So Praetor looking completely different to the last time these two teams went head-to-head.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Praetor especially definitely switched on in this series, right? It was very clear from draft that this is something that they had prepared, you know, Aphelios being a pocket pick for Praetor basically ever since the champion came out. And from the get-go, they were contesting PGG, right? That's something we hadn't really seen in these early skirmishes in their previous series, right? But Direwolves today, especially around the Dragons, just had such good setup that every time PGG wanted to walk in, they were having to go through Talia, having to go through this Aphelios, and that made it really hard to secure objectives. And then, you know, that ends up with a 4 Infernal Dragon Soul.
Yeah.
Right, which is just huge. And you saw some of this Aphelios damage in that late game, just absolutely insane. So Direwolves definitely having refined their approach to how they're taking these mid-game team fights, night and day from Monday.
Yeah, the mid-game was really strong too, managing to get both those Heralds, you know, pretty much uncontested as well, managed to open up that top lane, then that mid lane. And look, the macro was just completely on point. It felt like a couple of the members from PGG were missing in this game. It did not look like the same PGG we saw 2 days ago.
No, not at all. I mean, for me as well, a very muted affair from the Gragas. In particular, Dongy was very quiet. Think back to Monday, his Annie was 1v9ing some team fights, finding some crazy angles, and he was putting in work. This time, it seems like he was nullified, and I think that's just a result of a lot of like lane assignments and map movement. Difficult, very difficult game for Dongy to play.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think a lot of that is due to the Talia pick as well, right? I mean, when you're playing against Lee Sin and Gragas, what better matchup is there for a Talia in the mid lane, right? That E is able to nullify so much engage potential, and we saw multiple fights, right? Where Dongy or Schoenfire are wanting to find these angles, but they just can't, right? Because that Talia E is there, it's stopping any engage potential. So a really heads-up pick, and you know, we mentioned this is one of Chaz's pocket picks, so potentially PGG rather, not expecting that coming into draft.
Also, almost a 40-minute game, completely different to what we've been seeing. Every game we've seen in this last week feels like we're getting those 20-minute Barons instantly, game being won 5 minutes later. But we got at least another 10 to 15 minutes of gameplay in this one. So it's looking good. It's looking good. PGG, do you think they're going to bounce back with another red side pick? Do you think that they're going to try and change up the strat moving into the next one? Also, before we lose this graphic, any interesting itemization choices from either of the teams?
No, I don't think anything was particularly crazy. I do like the Anathema's Chains and Everfrost build from the Nautilus. I'm a big fan of that choice.
Yep.
When you feel like there is only one major carry or threat, because you can just run them down constantly and be a real nuisance. And I also want to give a shout out to Decoy for how he played in this game. I think he was actually really solid in preventing flanks, which was like the most important thing, right? That Gragas was just probably sick of dealing with him because he was everywhere.
He's just like looking and he's like, wow, there's another tank in the way. I can't do it.
Every time.
Yeah.
And speaking of the Gragas too, if you look at the mid lane items, he is down basically 2 full items against Talia. Right? I think almost 100 CS
Close
at the end of that game. It was just brutal. It's absolutely not what we've been seeing from Dongy. So in terms of switching up things for next game, I would be expecting them to, you know, potentially have a matchup in which Dongy has a bit more agency. I think the Gragas in and of itself is okay, but into Talia, it's just so hard to deal with. He needs to be able to get active in these fights.
Yeah, and look, Chaz on a bloody champion that he is completely comfortable on, something that we know is, you were saying he's got kind of like an odd champ pool, but when he gets to play it, when Direwolves get to play their comfort picks, you know, you got Aphelios in the hands of Praedyth, you got Talia there in the hands of Chaz, and then everyone else playing things they're comfortable on as well. Like even Poltron getting back onto something that has been working for him all split. Look, it just calculates to a W. So we'll see if that changes or not moving into Game 2. But to get to Game 2, we've got to go to a break, ladies and gents. Go hydrate yourselves because this next one's going to get sweaty.
Still chasing, still hunting, still looking as the Direwolves camp.
The blind hook on the bush. They face check Chippy. Ceaseless taken 2 with them to the grave. In we go for another. Schönfire lagging behind. And honestly, Chaz's Talia at this point is just doing far too much damage that he can just take anybody down for the delayed ace.
Yeah, but Chaz is just putting in that.
you say something, bro? It's getting weird.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, welcome back to LCO. No one said we were live. I had no idea we were on camera. Ah, damn. These production issues, it's definitely not me being a silly goose. Look, Maximize... What were you the other time? Was it Bob?
Bumper.
Bumper.
Bro, I said it like 10 seconds ago, man.
And I saw you have a bit of a beef with another bumper on Twitter as well. He's like, my
Yeah,
name's been stolen.
he was not happy about
Ah.
that identity theft.
Yeah, poor mate.
You doubt me? You doubt me? You come onto my couch
I'm sorry. I feel
On
like,
our
I feel like I
show.
need to backpedal.
and you doubt me?
You can go on this couch, mate.
Yeah.
That's not going to be easy to swap.
It's not. We are kind of like tied in here,
Yeah.
but like...
one day you can come on
Hypothetically.
this
Literally
show.
tied to the couch.
Either way, look, this game, spectacular scenes in game number 1 of the series so far. Really loved what we saw from Direwolves. Big bounce back after what happened on Monday. And then, look, that when we spoke to Zoronus and he said in the interview, yeah, look, we hadn't had enough, match games just yet, stage games. We decided to, lose day 1, go down, get another game under our belt, get that confidence after beating Mammoth and then come into today looking fire. That narrative, it's going well. It's going really, really well for Direwolves at the moment.
Isn't it? That
Yeah.
and the Chaz confidence, the Chaz momentum that they were talking about, the fact that they were able to find that on stage is obviously a really big and very important factor for them. And they came into this game absolutely just swinging at 100 and really took it to Penson, who I think are the ones that, as you can see on the draft, might need to reassess a couple of their decisions.
Yeah.
Max, I know we were talking about this just quickly before we came back, but this isn't in pick order. The Lee Sin was in fact first picked by Pensonet. That feels like a very odd first pick because it's not a denial, it's not a flex, and it doesn't provide you with anything other than the Lee Sin. So it is very beatable. And now you know that Chaz is willing to play things like this to Leah again. He played it, but now he's actually revealed it to you on stage. You probably reconsider what you're going for that first pick to be.
Yeah, so it seems like PGG really are putting prio on this Lee Sin. Obviously, it worked for them the other day against Direwolves. He did die a few times, but in terms of the KD, it didn't really show how well he played and how well he set up in those team fights. But today, bit of a different churn fight. I think it was like 0-4 or 0-5
Yeah, I think
towards
0-4.
the end of the game.
Yeah.
So nowhere near as much jungle presence that, compared to that last series. So I'm interested to see what they're going to go with going into the next game. If they do try to get, some Vi online. Is that, so the way that the bans come through, is that Vi first ban?
It was
Yeah.
via
Yes.
Jace, Annie,
Yeah.
then Silas
and then
Olaf.
Ash. Okay,
Okay,
and so on.
yeah.
I did actually want to speak about that a little bit because I think that PGG's bans really facilitate that Aphelios first pick that Direwolves actually went for, right?
Yeah.
The thing we saw, I think we saw it yesterday in Kanga Bliss series, is Aphelios gets picked early, you just pick double ranged into it and it can't play the lane. Like Hooper was 60 CS down in like 10 minutes. It was just absolutely grim. But PGG banned basically all of the supports, all the champions that you want to be playing if you want to go for that range style. So Direwolves having an absolutely free time picking that Aphelios, and I wonder, are PGG revisiting that? Do they want to leave that open? I do know that Appy is someone who likes to play these engaged champions. We know he loves his Leona, he loves his Nautilus. So will they continue to run that back, or are they willing to go, hey, we can just smash this Aphelios in lane. It doesn't matter how he's going to be in team fights if he's got no gold.
Well, look, Decoy looking spectacular as well, so making Praetor's job that little bit easier, and Praetor's playing well, so that's just when the recipe for success really starts to cook. Now, that being said, Violet had moments. There were moments with Max sitting next to me in the green room going, "Oh, Violet!" Because he's just thinking about his prediction. But obviously, it was angles. There was angles that we could see. Unfortunately, things didn't play out. He did a very, very good job himself. But look, there was like Appy was doing pretty well. He was on that tank as well, so was able to survive. Try to help facilitate a couple of those attempts at turnarounds during team fights, which ended up then, becoming PGG's demise.
Yeah, it was a couple of attempts, and I mean, there was that one big moment for me in the game where things were fairly even after a team fight, but then Violet actually dashed into melee range of 3 people, and that's where it kind of all, for me, that was the moment that this game was more decided than anything else.
Yeah.
Where I feel like perhaps Violet felt the pressure for the first time and just chose his moment, but chose the incorrect moment to make that play. So still has that potential, still was a winnable game for Pensett in reality, right? They just couldn't execute in the same way. They were just pushed out of the river every single time a little bit too well by Direwolves.
Well, look, we have side select at the ready. Let's see who's picking what side. It's Direwolves' turn to pick, and they're going straight back to blue. So pretty comfortable with where they've gone. Maybe they want to put high priority on that first pick. Maybe they're hoping to get Aphelios online again.
I wouldn't be surprised if they were to do that again, because, for instance, say if you're thinking, oh, we're going to play Lee Sin again, maybe not in that first rotation, perhaps if you're thinking we want that again, you're always in the back of your mind thinking, do we need to ban this Talia, right? Because we saw the Camille ban, and we're a little bit like, oh, I haven't seen that in a hot minute. Obviously, the Jax makes a lot of sense. We've seen how good that can be. You're starting to wonder, okay, maybe a little bit more respect needs to be shown if they can flex Chaz at their sort of final pick to say, hey, I do have these quirky picks. They're no secret, like I've shown them before, but you can't play mobility into them because I just flat out cancel.
That's also like the first time we've seen a team pick the blue side for a fair while.
Yeah.
A fair bloody while. You guys need to pick your side. Which side are you on? Who lost all those points putting them on PGG, you fanboys, last time? For the Dare fan vote, let's see if you can get those points back in this game. I wonder if it is going to be that 2-0 like Chaz mentioned. Maybe. And look, if that's the case, then Rusty,
I'm happy.
that's a big
Our
W.
2-0s in shambles.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah,
Couple
I
of
was so
points.
sad.
That'll catch me up very close, actually, to Twitch chat and you, I think, if I
Yeah,
get
they
this
probably
one.
would, yeah.
Me and Kitty were both 2-1 PGG, so we're still in it.
Yeah, still in it.
But that's a reverse sweep angle. We're
Hey,
looking for.
Pentanet's still in it too. You're expecting adaptations in this game, and I think that should put them well and truly back into a comfortable position.
And that's what I wanted to mention, like why this game was so good, and I think this whole series is going to be good, is because there wasn't really that typical, it's 25 minutes and the game's already over. It's not over, but it is.
Yeah.
And even at this point, when the Soul, even when they had an Infernal Soul, the game didn't feel over. Like you said, there was that potential for Violet to come back on Zeri, have a pop-off team fight, and I think that's what happens when you have these two teams that are so close in skill, that even with such a large goal disparity, there's always that question of, oh, hey, if one team fight goes this way, can we win?
Can we win? Indeed. That's the question that we're about to find out. Can Direwolves get the 2-0? Or is Kitty going to keep dancing on the screen next to us? That's what we're going to answer right now. It's Champ Select time.
Production's just going through a series of Kitty memes, and we're just like, yes, focus.
Well, Mac, that's so interesting.
Focus on the draft,
enough.
boys.
It's time for the game.
Here we go again. So, yes, Direwolves is going to start once more on the blue side. They themselves selecting it, making no changes on their half. Let's see if PGG would unlock in the Varus as well to showcase that nothing changes whatsoever. Yes, a Sejuani ban is the only switch up so far.
Varus is going to be up, and Dials are going to snap that one up really quick. So this is where it gets interesting to me, because Varus can be considered a trap first pick. I don't know if it's a good first pick. I think the easy response here is, well, that's not what I was thinking, but is like the Zeri or a sustain, like a Bloodthirster champion. Aphelios also does fit that bill, right, with what we've been seeing from a lot of players at the moment. But you pick up like a Bloodthirster ADC, and then you pick up any kind of flexible support, probably a jungler here instead, and just see where Dials choose to go with this Varus build. Try and force the Varus into being an ADC that is on hit based, and then just be a better AD champion.
Well, for everything Violet said about the Draven, he's just locked it in. There's the Lee Sin as well. Does not care. You're thinking, surely not one more time. You don't feel like Poltron's going to want to lock that in anytime soon. Is there a real necessity to guarantee this? But find ourselves in a situation now.
Vibe Band is the interesting thing for me, right? Because you're looking at now probably a Wukong from the Direwolf side.
Sure.
Just kind of starting to limit just a little bit more on what the jungle champion pool will be. Elise is still up, by the way. I just don't know if Poltron is an Elise player. The Nautilus kind of seems to just be the choice for Decoy at the moment. Doesn't want to play anything else, but no support has been picked yet for Pentanet, so they can see this and very easily take the handshake, take the happy lane. That's an interesting choice.
It's been a long time since we've seen the Trundle come out to play. This could be quite exciting, given that we're just seeing so many heavy AD compositions. The amount of value that Chomp is going to really look to try and deny.
That's if you can press it.
Well, that's true.
Right? Like, can be so annoying into Draven because you just put the Pillar of Filth up. Draven needs to try and catch axes somehow. Needs to kite somehow. Right now, the disengage from Pentanet is Elise in kicking him away, or Leona stunning him in place. So there is actually some pretty immense value, especially locking in Leona, knowing that there's a Trundle, just giving him the ability to use that subjugate on you with W up. You know, like giving him someone that is very valuable to use that on is going to be nice to have. So maybe it's a read by Direwolves.
Well, I'm just wondering, right? You have Subjugate, you have Anathema's Chains, and it's like, your job is basically done. Resistance to Shreds, CC lasting forever, and a bit of a sore spot that PGG will have to try and contend with. They've actually switched up their bans this time, so rather than targeting Zoranis
in that top lane. A ban towards Akali. You're imagining a Talia as the next ban, given the amount of mobility. Once again, that was a bit of a nuisance.
We saw a Silas ban last time by Direwolves. It was a Camille and a Jax for Pentanet.gg. The fact that the Akali is gone means they are showing a lot of respect to Chaz, a lot of respect to him. And it may just be an Orianna or something in mid, right? It may just be a control mage where Dongi wants a stable lane. But with that in mind, Chaz can play any champion, really. He's still got the Zoe up his sleeve. We haven't seen that one in a hot minute, but he's a very good Zoe player.
Yep, so Silas has been denied one more time. So no real changes from the side of Direwolves, at least when it comes to the bans. Obviously, comp-wise, they've given us something a little bit different.
Trundle loves having follow-up CC, right? Varus Trundle, Nautilus Trundle, they all work really nicely together. What the composition doesn't have yet is magic damage that is a hard carry for them that can follow through with their comp. Something like Victor is quite nice. Now knows his matchup as well, so Chaz can kind of pick whatever he would like here, knowing that it's going to be an R in the Lee Sin, which is a pick composition. Very strong 2v2. But you've got a Trundle. If he is hitting the Lee Sin, the Trundle is fine. It's hard to do when you've got Charmed running at you, and your only way to cover distance is in a straight line running very quickly.
Yeah, I do remember Dongi having that really impressive performance on the RE, diving bot lane, using the stopwatch to drop turret aggro as well and getting away.
Does he rise? Rise might be an option. Chaz does enjoy a good rise because it complements his ability to roam around the map.
Well, I'm curious if it was to be Rise or maybe like the Azir route if you want extra range to try and hit them front to back and be nimble enough to not get caught out of position from the pick composition. Ultimately says Rise is the play. And the final response is to be Jax.
Interesting overall composition here from Pentanet.gg, and similar to game number one where we said I feel like the crux of this comp belongs around their bottom lane. That remains unchanged. What they've added in this time is a more roam-centric mid lane, or at least when Dongi plays the RE, he's permanently in a side lane. And option 2 is a split push win condition in top lane. A team fighting champion as well, Jax can absolutely be high damage threat at all times onto a lot of people, but is that split pushing threat and everything else, right? But it starts with that split push. To me, Pentanet are still going to be playing around their bot lane 2v2, getting that Draven ahead, trying to find a way to snowball the game through that lane. And doing so by generating picks through the orchestra of death through mid and jungle, right? Shernfire, Dongi working in tandem. If it's 2v2s or if it's just prio into roaming, they are the start of that giant tidal wave of success.
100% agree. I do feel like we'll be seeing a lot of attention put into mid lane to make sure that Dongi can freely rotate, go towards that bot side of the map, and make sure that the Varus first pick doesn't find merit. Speaking towards that then, based on what we've seen with the draft, do you lean a particular way in terms of lethality or on hit? Because I can see the merits for both, but certainly if you fall behind as lethality, it feels, I want to say, a lot worse.
Yeah, so you've got a Gnar who can be like a fake AD carry type champion, but not really when it comes to team fights. It's most likely that it would be an on-hit Varus in this game. The composition is more complementary to close range DPS. Right, you've got a Trundle that should be able to just take resistances off the one target that you're hitting, and you should be hitting with the Rise to kill that person. So I wouldn't be against something like, because like lethality can work, I wouldn't be against something like a shield blow just to survive in team fights for longer and have that cleanse there. You could be just essentially unkillable with that build. But I think based off the runes of choice here, it most likely is going to be that lethality.
Yeah,
just non-interactive with the Draven.
Yeah, just want to make sure you keep your range and not fall victim to any dive attempts. Well, let's then load into game number 2 here. Direwolves looking a lot more refreshed and refined with that game 1 victory, finally finding their revenge into Pentanet this season. Will it be, as Chaz predicted, the perfect 2-0? Or has Pentanet, between games 1 and 2, found enough adaptation to bring us to that magical game 3? As a quick reminder, obviously, this is fighting for seeding. Both teams already locked in here for the LCO playoffs, but now fighting to see who their opponent will be in the other group.
Absolutely the case. All right, so as we load into this one proper, quick rune check as well for most of these guys. It seems pretty straightforward, pretty standard. The Hail of Blades was the first thing that we highlighted for Praedyth, which is an indicator of the lethality build. What that does mean that Violet in response, probably getting the Lifesteal Draven variant, right? Where you can just start with a Bloodthirst to have that overshield and survive through it. But already early trades will be seen in bottom lane, as you would expect, right? High damage, high DPS, high poke. Overall, though, everyone, I think, pretty straightforward with their runes. The one champion that people might look at, Skimmy, is the jungle role, right? It's a lethal tempo Trundle, which means heavy on the dueling front, wants to be able to brawl that Lee Sin, wants to be able to hit the closest target and just take him down with that increased attack speed.
Feels very similar in my mind to like how Sejuani wants to be aggressive up in your face.
Guys doing bottom.
These supports.
His supports are just handshaking, pressing their Q ability. So, yep, still works.
Hey, look, there's my icy spray. Yep. That's annoying. As this time, Schönfire's not going to get invaded on his blue buff. He's going to be able to pick that one up scot-free. Happy days for him. Colton going to start off on the Raptors, pathing towards the bot half of the map as well. Whereas for Schönfire, he's gone really red to blue and ready to match in a bot lane if anything were to occur. Now, I'm curious about this mid lane matchup, right? Because we saw Chaz really stick to these handful of champions.
Yep.
One of the limitations last time was being so close quarters, so close range rather. Let's see if he finds those avenues, knowing what we're expecting is to be Schönfire and Dongi holding hands and skipping lanes together. Let's see if Chaz can respond in similar fashion.
Okay, so Schönfire is actually bottom looking for that dive. Poltron is right here, however, and they know that, so they're going to take the cautious approach to this one. Also, Scryer's Bloom going to be used. They won't spot Poltron any further, but they know he's at Krugs. I'm not sure that was a dive attempt in the first place.
Just a peekaboo.
Yeah, but like if Poltron wasn't there, can they dive that? Is the question. I'm not convinced that was real. But proactivity is something that I'm a big fan of, right? Like a Leona can be mobile, Lee Sin can be extremely mobile if played correctly.
Oh, okay.
It's already set up over there.
I mean, we're just burning flashes. We think we found lethal here in the top lane, only 4 minutes in. No, not a single flash exists anymore. TPs will obviously still be there for later on, but HP being traded fairly aggressively.
Traffic cone used by Poltron to halt the flow of Appy traffic in the river. Control we're going to be cleared in mid. Still potentially looking for a fight. It seems like Direwolves want one. But Pensnet were never really taking that skirmish. They were just clearing waves. At least was just there as support's going to hit each other again for fun.
Ooh, Appy's just missed that Zenith Blade onto Praedyth. But thankfully isn't going to take too much damage with the shield up.
Cooldown on the E is still quite low, so may still continue to hunt for this one. Praedyth, no mana.
Here we go again. Violet's got the axes, so in goes Decoy, forcing out the cleanse. Praedyth flashing away, but an ignite is ticking. And it's all up to Decoy now to try and take down Violet. Decoy does set the flash. There it is. Match just out of range of the piercing arrow. And Appy doing his hardest to try and peel this one to make sure that no, Decoy, you're the one in trouble. And yes, he certainly is. First blood found by Violet.
And Violet able to freely hit throughout most of that onto the Nautilus. Praedyth stops auto-attacking. This is one of those situations, you watch the replay back. You watch how both AD carries played that skirmish out completely differently. Decoy wants the kill. Praedyth was terrified. But you're left wondering of what, because the Nautilus was putting in so much work for him. They try and coincide the piercing arrow with the auto-attack stun. Violet very nicely buffers his own flash. And we see the skirmish one more time. Immediately the call is go for the Draven. I don't think that flash was necessary at all from Praedyth. And now he's so far away, his best call is to wait for this, but the nice timing on the flash from Violet means that he's fine. And now he just gets to auto. Meanwhile, Praedyth, not autoing a thing. Touches a minion one time. Dematerializer was used by Decoy to try and get himself level 4, maybe more survivable. But at the end of the day, it felt like a bit of a 1v2 with someone just throwing Hail Marys from the back.
Yeah, unfortunately, a little bit concerned about the all-in potential, which is, I suppose, warranted, right? Draven and Leona will do a lot of burst damage very early on, but still was enough to give that very small advantage in the favor of Pensnet. And a similar opening to game one, where the kill does occur in the bot lane.
Recall does come through though, Skimmy. They'll get themselves the serrated Dirk in bot lane, so it's very clear that that's the pathway that they're choosing to take, that lethality build. There is enough physical damage in the rest of the team when it comes to teamfight DPS as well between a Trundle and a Gnar, but a Draven already well and truly on the way with that early kill. If your goal was to avoid adoration stacks being cashed in, your supports died anyway, so those stacks were cashed.
This becomes interesting now because that has been the struggle for some of these Dravens is obviously you can dominate laning phase, but then what happens when you're planted in mid lane? What happens then when you're wrestling for control to try and go into a team fight?
And here's the thing that I can note about this as well. In terms of Draven games, it's going to be hard to, yes, to deal with a Mega Gnar, to deal with a Trundle putting a pillar down, but all of the Direwolves composition require a little bit of setup somewhere else, right? That the Gnar needs to be Mega, needs to jump in first. The Rise needs to hit E before he presses W and locks you in a rune prison. Sure. Otherwise, he just slows you. As Dongi's ulted.
He certainly has. He's hunting for that kill. Charm connects, that's beautiful. Blind in the bush. In goes Zoranus. Poltron sticking down to ignite. Burning on through. And stunned up against the wall now is Dongi, but he's still got a flash left in the tank. And Direwolves cannot find one to match.
There's a fascinating little interaction there between Gnar and Ahri is what happened. She ulted over the wall but got pulled back and was stunned on the wall she was ulting over, but on the side of Zoranus. So had to flash over the wall to safety. Poltron just very much caught out of position there by the early movements. Recall going to be cancelled because Chippies is near a ward. And at the end of the day, still very nicely done by Pensinet.gg. As stated, looking like a different team between games 1 and 2 already. This feels much more like them, like the normal Pensinet we're used to seeing.
It's always tough when you have to sort of talk about a team and, you know, what to really expect and what to look forward to. It certainly has been, if Pensinet are firing with all cylinders in the first 15, if they're finding kills grouped up together, then their mid to late game is pretty impeccable as a result thereafter. Dongi's going to miss the charm. Is that enough to try and find Churnfire in hot water? It is. He's at least going to get a kick to the head to take down Decoy, but pay the price for it. Chain of Corruptions, that tether has been broken, but Appy now, the second man of war, as Poltron just a little bit too tanky with the ultimate ramped up and going.
And I think maybe Pensinet asking themselves, why is this Varus here? Where did he come from? What's going on? With the AD carry difference, a little bit more meaningful. Once again, that's back-to-back games we've seen this from Direwolves. When the Herald is their target, they bring both bot lane members up, and at first glance, that felt like a really bad engage for a Nautilus to go for. But they had numbers, they had time on their side, and they were able to find those picks. And it really did just become, can we kill the Nautilus in time? Because we're not able to kill Chaz, he's too tanky, and they have the number advantage en route. So Violet will push this wave in, but in comparison to game number 1, if we talk about this Herald transaction, it's not going to be 2 plates, is it? It's going to be matched. Direwolves are going to be here, they're safe to walk here. So it is just winning for the Direwolves in this case. Absolutely
is. Much different outcome this time around, which is obviously what you really want to have occur for the side of Direwolves. You win absolutely everything. Let's run it back in the mid lane one more time.
And so first look, Hook connects, but Trundle's going for plays around Vision. With the Rift Herald wasn't even moving here immediately, but they do so much damage on the Churnfire. They just know how much damage they can deal. They know their limits. They try and get a kick at the last second, but Praedyth is here, and they're stuck near the pillar, slowed down. No way that was ever missing. And so they'll get themselves a second kill. Net a Rift Herald afterwards as well. Now in the pockets of Poltron to be placed wherever he would like.
It most certainly is.
They've brought back like 10%.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, more points and more predictors towards the side of the Wolfpack. Being a little bit more hopeful that perhaps Direwolves can close this one out, but still the overwhelming majority. Thinking that PGG do have enough to bring it to a third. It certainly is anybody's game at this early stages. Still PGG with a gold lead. And very much a case of matched resources. Jungle, mid and bot lane for both teams. The points of power right now.
Yeah, still very much well off in this game is Pensinet. Just one little play against the flow, essentially, as looking to stop those recalls. You might be able to tank a Nautilus hook for your AD. You're not going to be able to stop a Varus arrow. So they will have to be humbled, walk the long way. If they choose to base here, there is no teleport for Violet, so he realizes that the wave's being hard pushed and is mind controlled into staying. Guys, on your screen are the place that I was going to talk about, Skimmy, above all else, is it feels like Chippies has just been farming pretty happily, and if this is a skill matchup, they're both just getting their farm, they're both just getting their CS. The plated steel caps there to keep Zoranus in the lane. But that does mean Jax will hit that Mythic at relatively short order. It does mean that Jax will scale into this game pretty successfully. Not that the Gnar will be weak, but that is a win con that's going to be there.
It certainly is. Does mean that if things like this were to occur, Chippies has kill pressure. If he can get the solo kill now, this would be huge! The flash away! He's going to die to the turret for it. It will be a 1-for-1. And with Poltron here, lane state may not be anywhere near as bad.
Yeah, it was going to be a 1-for-1 trade in the end, and Chippies was going to be really chuffed with that one because his wave would have been perfect. Comes back, has the option to walk to lane or teleport to a huge wave of minions. That's going to get crashed by Poltron, which means that Chippies has to teleport to that top wave, maybe even a turret played for the Trundle top lane. Meanwhile, Pensinet will be able to get themselves the Drake. They'll be pretty happy with this one, but the overall trade, 320 plus, 350 gold plus a wave into the pockets of Poltron.
Yeah, check out the Herald
rockets
Poltron,
him
mate.
ahead. Yeah.
Do it all.
Take the whole turret if he wants.
Just taking
He's
the turret.
just chomping. Look at Trundle work.
Frozen domain down, and he's just bashing.
Have you ever played One for All game mode? 5 Trundles just go into a side lane and the Nexus dies in 30 seconds. Yeah, that's what that felt like. But I tell you what, Chippies just went for a simple 1-for-1 trade. He's like, it's a good dive. If I get this off, it's worth it. Look what happened.
Now he's come back to lane and said, what?
It's gone.
Life is not fair.
Top gap is jungle gap. Is
Feels
what
that way.
Chippies is saying.
Poltron pokes his head into lane and says, Dongy, I'm not even coming for you. The pillar, forget about it. I just want to summon a Herald because I basically summon one top side. And I've just found myself a 2-for-1 special. So much gold.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what we also just saw there.
He's the most fed in the game.
Yeah, Poltron, large. More gold than even Violet, who cashed in 40 CS worth of Adoration stacks plus that kill. Violet, of course, going to creep up now. The thing that I want to highlight there also is that the second they look for a play mid, they walk over wards, and not just that, they cop a Varus arrow. So, hyper vigilant is the bot lane of Direwolves. They recognize that they can't just stay bottom. Their job is utility. They're a Varus with lethality. They're a Nautilus that wants to hit those hooks. They're playing for the rest of the map. The rest of the map just made money off that from Poltron alone. And just had a feast.
He certainly did. New champion, new ideas, and a new way to punish, it seems. As we were only really just before complimenting how well Chippies was doing in this lane. Not to say that it wasn't a good play, it certainly was. But the aftermath has certainly left a lot left to desire. And as you can see, the Divine Sundra Mythic item boost. Item spike difference as Zoranus is still lagging behind, trying to find himself that Trinity Force.
Probably has close to the Trinity Force now after this minion wave. Throws a Q in the bush, actually does find Appy. Doesn't even know it was Appy, but found him. Direwolves just going to push that mid lane in response. You're expecting the Mythic here from top lane. You're expecting Direwolves now. Remember, the big cause of that turret falling top lane was the jungler, and that is a Divine Sunder, a Trundle, so he is obviously quite strong. But it's just him. And Chippies was still controlling that top lane relatively well. Drake number 3, probably a must contest here for both teams as well.
Yeah, it really has been another similar setup as Poltron really does have the moves. Look at him go. Dodging out everything. And the blast going for good measure as well.
Chippies in.
Look, the flank from Chippies though. There's the stun. There goes the kick. Schönfei's found the angle. Now taking a 1-for-1 up against Poltron as both disengage away, but Chippies has already moved Chaz. A flash out of the solar flare as Pentanet was certainly hunting for more. But it's 2 minutes till that dragon, but there is a Herald on the other side of the map now spawning.
And they were so committed to that play as well. Full respect to Pentanet for recognizing the angle. Chippies is the one who comes in on the teleport with the flank. Right place, right time, good comms. PGG will find their mark. And it starts with a Trundle that dodges all of the abilities and you think he's out.
Yeah.
Dodged everything. Everfrost only slowed, Charm completely missed. Has the Blast Cone to get out safely here. And then they just reassess, right? It's Chaz that they end up finding. The Warthog kit comes in on a Draven Whirling Death. And they're able to just unleash hell to the face of Chaz, forcing the flash trade as well at the very backside of that one. Trundle very sad that he's lost his flash compared to Leona, who doesn't care.
And she does not care whatsoever. So many flashes, Rusty, were burned in that series of events. And maybe another one here. Although already burnt, Shenfire won't care. Yes, you're taking me down, Predator. I'm still going to come at you and try and deny Chaz at least an assist. as the realm does come a little bit too late.
I don't know if that was a cooldown thing or if Praedyth was just content watching Decoy die there. Maybe there was some kind of little grudge in comms. Someone yelled Danny too loudly. Praedyth was like, shut up, I'm tired. But he didn't ult at all until the very end. He waited for his Nautilus to die before chucking out the ult. So, look, it's a 1-for-1 trade. It was a jungler traded for a support. You take that. But now there's also the cost of a Rift Herald soloed by the Jax during all of this. Chippy's very active in this second game.
Chippy refuses to get 2-0, doesn't he? Making sure that they have everything in their power to make sure they can go towards this third dragon. Now, that is spawning in 10 seconds. 2 already acquired, so feeling very comfortable. It is Direwolves in the river first. It starts up with Decoy, 2-man knock up, and Chippy jumps in, finds a 2-man stun that has to be cleansed out of, and a Stolif there afterwards. Zoranus is dead. No chance to hit Mega once again, no setup, and full disengage now for the Direwolves. And Pensnet have smelt blood in the water, and they are taking you down one by one. There is the chain of corruption, there is the spread required by PGG. And a chance for Direwolves now to reassess the situation.
I mean, keep in mind here that Dongy, Schernfire, Appy, all in a hair's breadth of dying. Chippy's pushing away. Poltron just dead.
Oh no.
That's the biggest mistake yet, because 700 gold in the pockets of Violet makes this play go from bad and losing a Drake to really bad. And a Fed Draven above all else. There was a moment after this skirmish dissipates, you're thinking to yourself, maybe something's here, but Chippy's once again the difference maker. Big engage, Violet gets locked down, Schernfire and Appy completely out of the fight. Jax just walks in, they force the cleansers, and just like that, the Gnar can't flash, doesn't flash, and just gets one hit through crowd control. And then it's just a matter of chase them down until you can't chase any further. Big Varus ult will dissipate every single one of them. Violet will cleanse through it. But all that health goes missing, and still they get even more after.
They certainly do, and it really has been the perfect response here. As we get close to the 20-minute mark, the Herald into the Dragon, into the winning skirmish as well. The onus is now back on Direwolves to put themselves back in the driving seat, having found one turret already. There is the second. That is, without a doubt, going to be matched very quickly here by the strength of a Jax, with a helping hand from Shelly, of course. But yeah, as a result of that second cash-in from the Draven, Violet is a little bit too strong. I might be looking for a little bit more so far, as out goes the kick. But Praedyth with the angle, making it not look anywhere near as good.
Yeah, but they have to force the flash out of that Varus, right? So still a win for the Lee Sin in the end. As the flash saved himself, it was just a ward hop, a simple little play there from Pensnet. They break structures, they blow up in the map just a little bit more. You know, 2,000 odd gold lead is going to be very nice for them to have. All of the CS advantages that perhaps exist in any individual roles have been compensated for by kills now and turrets that have started to fall global gold, belonging quite nicely to Pensnet.gg. The big thing is still that Drake, 3 minutes, 20 seconds until there's a soul to be threatened, a reason to fight, a reason to play for. Those item spikes should come through prior to that.
Nicely done. Lots of work done in the top lane there with 2 charges from the Herald to make a second turret there feel rather close to falling on down as well. And you saw the minions just moments ago able to finish off the bot lane outer. A map state that now feels a little bit easier for them to navigate, and I'm really curious to see, you know, if Chippies can continue to be the first one to the play, continue to find these massive engages.
Internet collapsing as a 4-man unit right now. Jax on the flank. They find Chaz. He's in big trouble.
And he certainly is. Oh, he's already flashed across the wall. Rusty, it's a disaster. Blast cone back into the furnace and taken down in an absolute heartbeat. Hook goes out. Appy's the focus. Charmed his decoy. Now he's dead. In jumps Chippies. Cleanse this. You're dead by the time you found that moment to strike. And a shutdown that feels good for Zoranus. But he's got no team left, and Pensnet are going to take Baron.
And once again, they're the ones getting picked off, Direwolves. A team that is so good at finding those picks are the ones suffering from the success of Pensnet. Zoranus walking in the area is going to throw the boomerang backwards. See if he can let it go into the pit. That's the only chance they have at stealing this one. He's going to try now, but it's just going to be too far gone. And just like that, they'll get the kills, they'll get the team fight, they'll get the Baron buff, and they'll balloon the lead out to 4K. Chaz just walking through, Vision gets caught out very easily. Could have maybe ulted to safety if he wanted to reposition, but holds onto it. The fight starts out here from Direwolves with a really large Varus ult, but they shouldn't continue this skirmish. You can play for Varus Poke, you can play for Trundle Pillars if they're hitting the Baron buff, but they entice the play, they welcome the engage, and that's it.
Certainly is everything PGG want. They want to pick you one by one, and that they certainly did. But they're not content, they're not done. They want more. Relentless are Direwolves. They will keep trying to find you in a heartbeat. Duco once again the one to start it all off, but he's just dead. And Chippy's is the one to find him. Violet is now 4-0, having found another kill to his name. They're flashing the charm. You cannot escape our grasp. Predator will at least find something to cheer about, but they're completely routed in the mid lane. That mid-tier 1 is not protecting you. Chippies is going to find another menu. Or another member on the menu, I should say. Hunting down the wolf pack here.
It does hit Mini now though, Zoranus, with a chance of at least getting out, but have to dodge a Lee Sin Q against the wall here. Very nicely done by him. Stun connects though.
Yeah, it was inevitable, wasn't it? Just far too many options to try and run him down.
The thing with this play though, is Direwolves do really well in trying to stem the bleeding of what was a really bad start to this. The teleport comes in, and within a second, Direwolves are like, that's a mistake. The Draven ult comes in, teleport comes in, Dongy finds the kills, and they're done for. They are just done for. Pensinet get blood in the water, they smell that, they're like, this is it. But Zoranus is staring down Violet with Meganar about to proc. Animation cancels the wallop stun, gets cleansed by Violet, and they get the trade kills. They'll clear the wave. And Pensinet's only resolve in that situation was, well, we have to chase for further kills. But keep in mind that they did just give over like 2 shutdowns, right? It's a lot of money that Direwolves managed to accrue, but still they're looking at a Mountain Soul, right? They are still well and truly in the driver's
Well, they
seat.
certainly are, right? Despite the shutdown gold going away at Direwolves, they are still down about 5k gold, and now PGG have just successfully managed to claim themselves the Mountain Soul at just that. Even tanking are even harder to be traded out as they continue to hunt you down. A very quick Soul pointed out, only 23 minutes in.
One of the big things about Ryze and Varus is no Baron buff, no push potential. You have to keep that in mind if you are Pensinet and what you're playing for. Their comp also very much wants to dive. So while they've got this Baron buff, they're going to have to try and make some plays with it.
There's Soliflare, just CC for Oblivion. Cannot play the game. Didn't have a flash anyway, and maybe finding a second Predator forced to burn his stamina again. They just do not exist this game, Rusty.
Yeah.
Permanently on cooldown.
They've just decided that Chaz's KDA in game number 1 was a little bit too good, still diving.
They are still diving, and Zoranus is not here to answer. He is split pushing topside, playing as if he has Hullbreaker. He knows that this one is looking a little bit too rough to try and answer back, frustrated perhaps. Wants to give him some objective bounties, wants to give him some more catch-up chances here. But that's a beautiful invitation for Pensinet to walk in the front door and take away the inhibitor for free.
Even trade's definitely favorable for Direwolves, but not an inhibitor. Not a Mountain Soul with that inhibitor and a ballooned gold advantage going Pensinet's way. This game, quite simply, if I was to summarize it in one word, would be chippies. I think he has been such a large difference in this game. And that's with Poltron walking top lane, taking his whole turret, and he's still been able to find those angles, find those teleports. And as a team, PGG have been able to find those plays. A much improved performance from game number 1. They've preyed upon Chaz. They've preyed upon the split pushing tendencies, it feels like, of the Direwolves.
This really is the beauty of the best of 3 when we really get to see what these teams can pride themselves on. The ability to change up their approach, not only through the draft, but through their play style as well. And this one has certainly been an interesting affair here.
Remember what we just said as well, no Baron buff, no push. You can see Praetor's just going to throw out that ultimate threat and clear the wave as best he can. It's an outer turret, it was inevitably going to drop, but they buy so much time. And this is time where Chaz can successfully split push. They're going to be losing structures, but it's one of those more even trades. So overall, the map belongs to PGG.
Yeah, no one's going to be answering Chaz anytime soon. They are ramped up and ready to go. They're going to try and end this game with one fell swoop, one final fight. Inside the enemy base, in jumps Chippies, one-man stun, hooked, lock in place, and took a turret shot for good measure as well. Might fall on down, but buying as much time as he can. In goes the locket, there is the shield.
A kick away into Zorinus, who is mega denied once again on that massive slam against the wall. And that's just still more time for Chaz to keep split pushing. Direwolves are holding on 4v5.
Wave doesn't get fully cleared though, so the inhibitor's going to be exposed. 2 minions still there if they wanted to push past this one. Teleport comes in. Hook does find its mark.
Now it's going to be a 5v4 because Jax went back to base. In comes Chaz, and can they find a kill? Decoy eventually burns on down to the Ignite. In goes Praetor. Instant cleanse as he gets damage taken upon him. Inside the base, looking for those kills right now. Inhibitor, it's a second prize that they'll have to eventually disengage away to claim. They find another kill there, they might look at ending.
I mean, they get the teleport out of Chippies. So Zorinus has something slightly in his advantage, but it's just going to be matched by Dongi as well. At the end of the day, PGG can't be stopped. And again, quietly achieving. Violet just does not get touched at all. Full HP at all times. Direwolves going to press forwards, knowing the recalls have to come out of PGG. See if they can get close to the Baron buff before it becomes a real issue, because 2 inhibitors gone and a Baron buff in hand. You have to imagine the PGG just win this game.
He worried for a second, knowing that PGG were trying to get back to base as quickly as they can for that reset, whether or not Direwolves then rush towards the Baron and start it up themselves. But PGG are back. And showing no signs of slowing down. 6k lead. And straight onto the Baron we go.
Zorinus going to be able to get Mega Gnar as well off this Scuttle Crab if he wants, so they can't engage straight onto him for free. They bundle up, but there's vision there. Keep your eyes peeled on this Gnar.
Here we jump. Stun, charmed. He's slammed 2, but he's just dead for it. Look at him go. Dongi's going to find it. Churnfire across the wall, finds his target in Decoy, and is just obliterated. Look at them grouped up together. The PGG package is a little bit too clean.
Yeah, it's going to be game 100%. We're going to go to a third game here. They're going to chase down Praetor, but the teleport has already been used by Dongi to get towards the base itself, and they just run in, they flash the wall, and they are going to take us all the way to 3.
Clean on the dodges Praetor, and once again, flash used. Permanently on cooldown were these summoners, and permanently impressed were we, as this game is going the distance. It is going to a third, as PGG claim victory here.
And honestly, a very nice game, a good turnaround from Pensinet more than anything else. You know, between the games, they still have the confidence to pick the Lee Sin. Of course, it wasn't just a slammed first pick, but the way they played it out was much improved. Chippies get some agency on this Jax. And it did feel like at the end of the day, when Direwolves were trying to kite back with their composition, when they were trying to run back, they just had no tools to deal with the Pensinet onslaught.
I don't know if you caught that, boys, at the end. That looked like a Jax player right there, doing the whole like.
Throw anything.
Well, I've got no muscles to show off, mate, but you could do it.
Go on, go on.
Go on, show us, mate.
Oh, have you met my friend?
Oh.
Yeah? Huh? Have you met him? Hey. Met him? Have you?
I have.
Have you?
He's pretty magical.
Not going there.
He tastes pretty good too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he really does.
Oh, good on.
Look, at the same time though, what a game coming back from PGG. From the get-go, that odd scenario that happened in the bot lane, I think we were analysing it a little bit more as to, it just felt like Decoy and Praetor, you know, from that that first blood.
Oh, yeah.
When Praetor decided that, like, it seemed like Praetor called, don't go, and Decoy kept going because he's like, nah, we can. And then there was the point where the flash was just that one step too far, and then it was kind of downhill from there. And lane was won, lane prior was there, into a Drake in like a minute after that, and then things just kept on getting like worse and worse and worse and harder and harder and harder until it all boiled down to like what, like I think it was like a 15-minute team fight where they were getting a little bit crazy over towards mid. We'll see it here in the replays.
Yeah, and this game looks so much better for PGG because they have mid-agency, right? I think Dongi was a crucial factor in a lot of these early fights, being able to get multiple Spirit Rush resets off, finding those picks. One player in particular, though, and in my MVP of this game is Chippies. He got to so many fights on this Jax, and when you're playing a Lethality Varus and a Trundle, you're very low damage, just inherently, right? And Jax is able to come down, find these early kills, and I think he ended the game, you know, an item ahead, basically. He really just put this comp behind, and Direwolves comp just simply cannot play when they're at a deficit, right? We saw it here. Already, it's so hard when Chippies gets onto the carries. Churnfire doing a good job on this Lee Sin, bouncing back from last game. But Chippies always finding the angles, as we see here, onto Praetor, making his game basically impossible to play.
Insane game as well. And look, when they finally got that Baron online, base started falling, and then this last fight as well, that was just pretty much all show. No, wait, was that the last fight? No, this one. It was the other Baron fight that happened not long after. But look, crazy scenes and another long game as well. This is the series we expected to get when these two teams faced each other the other day, but we finally get it here, and it's for seeding as well. So both these teams, you can see, definitely want to be going into that next game, their first game in the playoffs, in the highest slot. I feel like it seems like they're probably thinking, ooh, you know, Chiefs is probably going to be winning that next game, so we don't really want to play Chiefs, so let's win here and now and make our playoffs run that little bit easier. Either way, everyone's got to play everyone when it comes down to it. And this one, look, there was no Infernal Soul coming through. It was that big old Rock Soul. Huh?
Yeah, Mountain Soul, yeah.
Mountain
All about
Soul.
the mitigation, right? Just becoming a little bit too tanky to try and answer back, and I suppose that just goes back into Max's idea. You got a Jax, which is relatively squishy, all things considered. You do tend to see, you know, Divine Thunder into things like your Force of Nature and so on, but just went full damage, inherently tanky as a result, and was just doing so much damage at the same time too.
Can we get a Chaz Rise win rate check during the break? Can someone figure that out?
Mac
Yeah.
was not a fan backstage.
Yeah.
The Chaz Rise.
Hey, only because every time in recent history I've seen Chaz lock in that Rise, I just remember L's. And I liked it only because I'm comparing it with like the Talia we got from him last game, which looked phenomenal. And we didn't get that coming from the Rise.
Well, I think that whole comp, like holistically, right? You have Trundle Rise. Trundle is a pick I was very surprised to see them bring out. Always has been a traditional Lee Sin counter because you just win skirmishes versus him in the early game. But basically does nothing in the late game besides ulting the Leona for resistances, right?
Yeah.
And then you're falling behind, as we mentioned earlier. Your Rise isn't really able to make too much of an impact on the game. And then Lethality Varus, sure, he can wave clear, but realistically, once you get to 5v5s, PGG always made sure they pulled the trigger early, so the Varus wasn't able to get actually that much poke off to start the fights. And you're starting on relatively even HP. They just have way more DPS than you.
Yeah, I definitely, all these changes that came through from the Direwolves draft, just, I'm thinking back to the last game, and it just felt like there was way more comfort in game 1 than game 2, and that might be where they've gone wrong. Either way, you guys, you're never wrong. So let's have a look at your playoffs predictions from the fans, what you've submitted here. We've got Solan with Pentanet 1, Chiefs 2, Direwolves 3, and Bliss 4. Okay. Although it could really go any way or in any order, I think all 4 teams have what it takes to win. That is so true. It's so
I think
true.
it's a pretty base take. I feel like this is based off what we've seen this week, a pretty accurate assessment of where these teams could land.
Arguably, yeah. Like, Bliss took that game off Chiefs and looked pretty good in that game.
All 4 teams are dangerous, right?
Yeah.
So, like, you could put them any direction and someone would be like, that's based. But I think based off this week, this is probably the best one.
Yeah, we got a couple more to have a quick look at as well. Thank you, Solan, for your take. A real Squiddo says, I predict that there will be a playoffs.
I think you're in the negative.
We've got a third one to have a look at.
Go next.
Jump on to the third one. See ya. Get out of here.
That's trash.
I've never done that to anyone, and Squiddo, I'm not sorry. Toasty exists with 0 MEC removed early to make the games fair. Oh, of course. Chiefs at number 1, PG number 2, DW number 3, and Bliss number 4. So same as Solan's.
Close. Pentanet Chiefs swap.
Oh, it is too.
Yeah.
I think everyone's kind of just geared up for the DreamHack rematch. You know, the final between Chiefs and PGG.
True.
I think that would be pretty hype if it were to happen in that fashion. But as we've seen, as you've already all been saying, right, on anybody's day, especially when BO5s come around, anybody can win it. So it's exciting when it's not that sort of foregone conclusion. You're like, oh yeah, they're the first seed, they've beaten everyone, kind of like get it over and done with. So
yeah.
We're just casting and have no idea what to expect.
I just remembered as well that a lot of these interviews, especially because you're talking about like old PGG, since we've lost Pabu, we've also lost crazy league terms such as Giga Stomped, Goomba Chads,
Omega, Astrobad.
Yeah, all this.
Yeah.
We used to get that from everyone, and now we're getting absolutely none of that.
We can bring it back.
You reckon he said Goomba in his wedding vows?
I'm Goomba in love.
I'm
in
Goomba
Goomba
love
He
you.
100% did,
Goomba
right?
love you.
Yeah. It's so cringe, but only he could get away with that.
And everyone still go, oh, it's so funny,
Yeah.
but wholesome. Anyway, look, wholesome moments. We have to crown a champion for this group, though, and that's going to be coming up in the next game, which is after the break. Ladies and gents, don't go too far because I miss you already.
flank. They find Chaz. He's in big trouble.
And he certainly is. Oh, he's already flashed across the wall, Rusty. It's a disaster. Blast cone back into the furnace and taken down in an absolute heartbeat. Hook goes out. Appy's the focus. Charmed his decoy. Now he's dead. In jumps Chippy. Cleanse this. You're dead by the time you found that moment to strike. And a shutdown that feels good for Dom.
Max just told me he's going to show everyone at home his best dance move. What you got for us?
I don't think I did, Mac.
You didn't? Oh.
No.
Well, you've missed your opportunity. I'll do it instead.
Do a wave, do a wave, do it down the couch.
I wasn't ready.
Why? I went
Are
the
you
wrong
ready
way.
now? Stop typing. Ready?
Put it back.
Send it back.
Oh my god.
Hey, look, when
Apart from you, mate. Hang on a minute.
I'm off screen. I was really
Something's
like,
not right.
Oh, that was not what I expected.
No.
I never know what I'm expecting because I don't expect anything. It just sort of comes out. And it either works or it doesn't. And here we are, huh? Going into game 3, though, let's have a quick chat about what we want to see change for both these teams. Of course, Lee Sin's been forced a few times, worked better in that second game than it did in the first game for PGG. But on the other side of things, Direwolves, they went for the change-up, which we did mention before the break, but it didn't work. It just, like, a couple of little decisions definitely aided that loss. But do you think you want to see something more like their first game draft to kick it back?
From Direwolves?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think I want to see something more like how they played out the first game, if not the first game draft. The major point of adaptation for me here, though, is the Trundle pick feels a little bit odd. Just full stop. Trundle pick feels a little bit odd.
Yeah.
The second thing is that they do still give over the Jacks. Now, what's interesting about that is in Game 1, Pentanet banned it, and Game 2, they picked it. So I'm wondering if there is some kind of just like hidden law for us where Chippies has so many good Jacks counters that they don't want to pick it, but at the same time can play the Jack so well himself that now it becomes a ban from Direwolves coming into the third game. Because I think that makes it a very interesting situation where Direwolves chose blue. Is it Direwolves choosing again?
We haven't gone into that yet, Rusty. Hey,
well, I mean, that affects the conversation on draft,
it
doesn't
really
it?
does.
So we're
it
into
really
it.
does. Can we leak the side select? we can leak
So Direwolves pick.
the side select. It is Direwolves pick.
Side doesn't matter, Direwolves pick. That's what
Okay.
matters.
But I think,
to me, right?
I think going back to your point, though, about they had the first pick priority. Varus was the option, but they forgot about the idea that they could just run it back with the Aphelios again, or instead go for the Zeri. Red side this time, which is interesting.
Big swap.
That's
Makes a bit
actually
more sense.
closer to what I was going to get at as well, right? Because then Zoranus gets a counter pick for top lane, suddenly can set himself up to succeed much more. The other thing is you actually just pick the Jacks after bans. So you have flexibility with your fourth pick on red side. I think that's something that'll cater to Direwolves comp really nicely, because I don't think they're upset about bot lane champions right now.
No.
Right? They're all just kind of coasting down there, handshaking, utility tanks. So it's probably going to be mostly about jungle and top lane champions.
I was like, do you think we're going to go back to tanks and swap up that ADC for Direwolves? Or, like we were talking about in the break, if maybe there was a chance for some kind of like ranged support, maybe that Varus can be picked again, or do you just not rate it?
Look, I think both teams have sort of shown that they show a heavier preference towards engaged melee supports. I think there have been opportunities for range supports to be played, and I think the bans, particularly from Pentanet, have shown that they're not really wanting to pick that at all.
Yeah.
So the onus is on Direwolves if they want to bring that out. But I think that in particularly a Game 3, we know both Decoy and Appy, they're much more comfortable on those engaged champions that can play make, and I think that Decoy, especially with his performance on Nautilus in Game 1, is definitely going to be happy to run that back again.
Well, I think all the PGG fans in the chat are also feeling a bit more comfortable, a bit more confident after that last Dare fan vote, and they're probably going to be putting those Twitch points up there somewhere yet again. Look at it. You two also, look. You're not on screen. Just look.
Oh, wow.
So,
Wow.
what are we looking at the option to vote for? Why aren't we looking at the chatters?
Wow.
I don't want to see that. I want to see the
We're
points.
inside a screen, Mac. We're inside Twitch chat. Wow. Oh, wow. Theatre mode, full screen, small mode. Oh, wow. Oh, chat's over here. Wow.
He needs to get paid more. Whatever you're paying him, double it.
Double it, because he's halved his decibels.
Well-
Is that how it works?
I get a half rate now.
I've got to stop yelling. I really got to stop yelling
Half the
about
amount
stuff.
of words you can say.
Oh no, it's back.
All of them are just
back.
wow.
Either way,
You know
look,
what that means?
Game 3 is not too far away. As a matter of fact, Champ Select, it's happening right now. Let's get into it.
Beautiful. As Kitty would say, it's time for the game on the other screen there that you can't see. I really wish chat could see what we're seeing right now.
We
but
need to show them at some stage. right?
One day we're going to get our phone out at the same time and record it in HD. Either way, PGG will get blue side for the very first time in this series. The conclusion to this best of 3 header. And they're going to start things off here with a Ashe and a Caitlyn ban. No Varus like last time. Response is that the Varus, Aphelios, and Vi will be denied. Now, my question is, knowing how prevalent it was for Direwolves early on in the season, is there ever a world in which they see something that's not like the Tristana Rel, where Direwolves respond with like the Lucian army one more time? Because it still feels strong.
I mean, they could Lucian army. I think it depends so much on what the first pick for Pentanet was going to be here as well, right? Now that you've banned away the Aphelios and the Varus yourself, it looks like a Zeri Lulu angle for me, right? This is just you just pick Zeri Lulu. There's nothing that they can pick that's going to ruin your life besides Draven Nautilus, and then you just have a better composition, right? That's kind of the idea in my head. Both teams have kind of shown this preference, though, towards wanting to fight, particularly around objectives. So My bigger question is beyond the bot lane of Direwolves, because now the Zeri's confirmed, you would assume Rakan, Lulu, something of the likes we picked with that one. It's a Jarvan into an Annie. What carry does Violet play? Does he go for the Draven, right? Do they actually set themselves up to have high risk, high reward carry champions? You know, both have really high damage, but can be killed just as easily.
That they certainly can be. And it is going to be Schönfire switching things up here. So off Lee Sin onto Wukong instead. Really link up quite nicely there with the Annie for the layering of big AoE stuns. But that is the question, right? What AD carry would it be?
Okay.
And there was a point in time where it really was Violent Imperative wrestling to try and get control of the Xayah. And Xayah has certainly risen through the ranks in recent weeks gone by, given the fact that teamfights have been so important, so many dive threats are there, that ultimate just finds a little bit too much value.
And if we want to kick back to like old drafting style, you go Leona or Rakan here. Those are your two options, right? Usually your AD would have been an Aphelios, and then you're just picking like the Rakan to deny the Xayah Rakan. Or you're picking the Leona because it beats the Rakan.
Yeah.
Those were your two real choices. A lot has changed since then. You can still realistically do that though. I do still think that Leona likes the matchup. So Direwolves will go for the Rakan side of the coin here, and with the changes to Rakan, it makes some sense. Much easier to sustain through. And then the question is, what do they ban? Do they get rid of supports, right? Do they want to make it hard for Violet to exist? Do they want to get rid of like a Leona? Do they want to get rid of something like a Nautilus so that Appy's not in his comfort zone? But right now, it doesn't seem to be their focus at all.
No, that does beg the question, right? How deep is the champion pool for Appy? And if they're not concerned at all then, who else are they looking to try and put a focus on? With the Jace denied away, so making sure that the flex there for Chippies as well as Dongy is not available. That could be the one saving grace for them, right? Hard engage with a lot of poke to try and kickstart things off. Could be the downfall here, knowing that a Jarvan wants to press forward with a Zeri and a Rakan right back behind him, able to do a lot of damage, freely hitting away. Now, you mentioned earlier in the series that we'd like to see some, long-range, big AP carries come on through. And that has certainly been the target this time around, right? With the Victor as well as the Talia being taken off the board. But now with the second pick being available, Direwolf's going to say, it's our time to actually play the Jax banned once. You play it, now our time.
I mean, that is like literally what I said would happen word for word on why you would go for that red side, right? Consider the Jax a high priority pick, go for bans into it. Silas is up and available. That is something that has been banned in every other game of this series so far by the Direwolves. So that is possibly there for Dongy if he wants to. But they have to reveal their champion now, and they don't know what their matchup will be. Wouldn't be opposed to something like the Silas, but you've got a Rakan Jarvan the ult that you can steal, right? But it's going to be the Akali pathway, which means it is the Annie support, right? So they've just kind of confirmed that situation. While we were talking about mid laners, I, for a second, did forget that that was a possibility. This is always a possibility. We saw this yesterday from the Direwolves skimmy. I didn't think it was going to 100% happen here. Really solid crowd control from a Wukong and an Annie when it comes to team fights. Gnar and Mega could use it to lock you down, but it's actually, all things considered, it is a somewhat free game to play the Aurelion Soul in. If you can get through the laning phase, which you can against an Akali fairly early, and get through that level 6 spike point, I actually think the Aurelion Soul is a decent pick here.
Yeah, its stocks are certainly rising, and already warmed up and ready to go is Chaz on that champion. Debut performance on it. 14 kills, the most ever seen so far this split. So certainly the pedigree is there, and may have the tools required to get them through to that comfort zone post 15 minutes.
And you know what is terrifying about the Direwolves composition? Every individual member can reposition. Every individual member has mobility. Zeri jumping over walls. Aurelion Soul getting resets on his voyage
flight,
as well.
yeah,
His flight, so he can go everywhere, reposition. Team fights 90% cooldown reset on a kill or assist. Jarvan, flag drag, Jax jumping everywhere, Rakan jumping everywhere. In terms of how these fights play out, their ability to reposition is immensely powerful and useful. And so if you ever make a mistake or misstep one time, 5 people can dash. And you're done.
Absolutely, and it has been a bit of a rough series for the Gnar to try and perform in, hasn't it? We've certainly seen from at least the first 2 games, CC, primarily coming from Lee Sin, has denied him finding the most insane angles possible. And could be a similar story here, although the shoe is certainly on the other foot. The matchup is going to be mirrored. played by different individuals this time around. So I'm still feeling like we will be putting a big beacon of light towards that top lane, as much as we've certainly got our vision toggled towards bot lane as to, okay, which carry once again pops off, who finds that first blood, what does that mean for the mid game? We've certainly got these two bruisers wanting to have a massive crack at it, and a red side for Direwolves where they say, 5th pick, you've always got to watch out for the Aurelion Sol.
And this is just such a massive game based on damage. More than anything else, right? There's junglers that can go in for these team fights. Annie and Rakan can hit those big ult combos as well if they want to. But at the end of the day, it's about who's dealing more damage when the fight starts. Who is free to hit when they're dealing that damage? Is the Jax taking out a carry? Is Violet struggling and just kiting away? Is the Aurelion Sol free hitting? Or is Dongy just assassinating people in the back lines? Because whoever is dealing that damage first, to me, just wins the team fight.
That they may certainly do. Well, let's crack on then with it, Rusty. Let's jump into the Rift one final time in this series to get the conclusion as to who will be the victor of this group. BGG and Direwolves find themselves fairly evenly matched here tonight. Only one of these teams can walk away with the first seed to then feel proud about their chances of going further and through to PCS playoffs.
One of many potential finals previews that we'll be getting in the forthcoming weeks. Pensnet and Direwolves do manage to go the distance regardless of result of this third game. Team Bliss and Chiefs will be playing afterwards at around 8 p.m. or at 8 p.m. We don't negotiate. It'll be 8 p.m. And our top 4 gets to strut their stuff one more time. Hopping into this one, no real special early moves. A nice little ward there from Zoranus in particular. I'm a big fan of that one, but Dongy places a ward. Just gets some life breathed onto him.
But I will say, speaking of the Aurelion Sol, actually opting for the first strike today. So we saw the Arcane Comet last night. This is the other rune choice that I have seen be utilized before. I do wonder if there's a world in which you feel like you would go for the Leandries as well, seeming as it is a bit of a free lane. Or if you just, do default to the Rod of Ages as usual.
I think you just go for the Rod of Ages. Remember that you're against an assassin, right? So the more survivable you are, the better. Compared to the more damage that you deal, the better. You're going to deal damage even with that tanky build. But looking for a little bit of a skirmish early on. Praetor taking some serious damage. Unable to trade back. Nicely done by Pentanet. Also is a cleanseless, healless, exhaustless bottom lane, as it is the Ghost for Violet.
Yeah, I feel like we're seeing more and more of these AD carries start to pick this one up as an option when they can, just to become an absolute weapon in those team fights. Bit of a luxury.
You're getting a sniff of a potential dive here, but look at the ward placed by Direwolves. We'll see Schönfire the second he walks in. Knows that the blue side's being attacked. Direwolves, I wouldn't be shocked to see them hit level 2 and disappear towards the Gromp to protect that one. As Poltron on this Jarvan already moving his way down. Chaz already moving his way in. They're looking for that collapse.
They certainly do, but the communication is early enough to make sure that Schönfire isn't going to fall victim to the pincer maneuver that was certainly threatening him.
But it's going to happen again. They have committed to this play. Chaz managed to avoid vision. They found one.
In jumps Decoy, Appy is the focus. Across goes the lasers. 2 in fact from Mizerian and Aurelion Sol. And Chaz the one in trouble now, forced to burn that flash away. A second also as Direwolves are on the retreat. You can't help but feel like PGG invading for the blue, feel like they've won.
Yeah, when all said and done, it feels like they did really win that one. Direwolves bring even their top laner down towards mid. That was a 5-man affair. Now, 5-man movement, they still have their teleports. They'll be able to come back to lane perfectly fine, but Flash gone from mid and a Wukong that can gank. Flash gone from jungle and it's a Jarvan that cannot use that now to find kills. I think they'd be pretty happy with the outcome of this one. Still Direwolves. Look, when all's said and done, they protected their jungle.
You're wondering for a second what Schönfire Dongy were up to as a tandem duo, whether or not they would invade Poltron, who was fairly low, and a 50%. But decide against it in the end, as we will stick to those standard laning assignments. And what really was burnt from the side of PGG? Well, they've used the Ghost here from Violet, right? So still has the Flash to try and reposition.
And, Flasher Ignite herself as well, right? So the bottom lane of Pentanet certainly has all of their summoner spells missing except for the Flash on their AD. Poltron clears most of his camps after he is protected. Looks bottom, but the wards were already placed in that area for the skirmish, so they're very much aware of where he is. And the mirror of the matchup that we saw earlier is being played in the top lane. Jax wanting to scale up. Can have a pretty prolific teamfight impact. But conversely, so can the Nara, as they don't have a lot of tools to deal with Nara as successfully in this game. There is no Lee Sin.
And both are fairly proficient at the Jacks. We've both seen them have phenomenal performances when it's come to grouping up with the team and finding success there. So let's see if Zorinus can mirror what Chippies did, finishing, I want to say, 8-1 at least, if not more, in a Game 2 situation. Certainly will be relying upon them to get them across the finishing line here.
And Chaz is the one, of surprise to no one, who's going to be struggling just a little bit in this mid lane. Farming really well, but was forced to teleport at a terrible time as a result of that skirmish in the river. So he's looking to take some potentially really bad recalls. But at the same time, watching an Akali clear a cannon wave is just depression. Just struggling. That cannon, never have enough energy for it. You need to clear the rest of the wave as fast as possible. Voltron, good guy.
Acting as the second support, really, isn't he?
Truly a good guy. He's going to tax one minion.
I'll take one.
Yeah,
that's the tax man.
That's fair.
That makes sense.
Cannon's on you, bud. Drake obviously going the way of Pentagon. It is free. Dongy tick 6 as well. They have all that free time. They know the recalls were there. They know the resets came through. Jarvan's farming mid-wave. They're very much aware of how we are. Just the first Drake of the game, though, and we've learned already. Dial's not afraid to concede those objectives at all. More than happy to.
Which is such an absence from what they've done in the past. That had been their strategy in limited games they'd had in this group stage. It had been to go at all costs first Dragon. 100% of the time it was their go-to.
Yep.
But this time around it's been a case of, well, we know just how hyper-aggressive PGG are towards these Heralds. Deny that and perhaps we have a better shot going into that mid to late. You can also see the Dare fan vote has completely gone to an even state now.
After Pentanet won a game, more Direwolves fans came in. Huh? It's fascinating how that sometimes pans out. I don't know how that reflects on the actual Twitch chat prediction in our fan vote, or in our predictions rather. It's a 50-50 game 3. What do we even...
Well, I'll tell you what, either way, win for a spectacle. As we look bot lane once again. And we get to see what it looks like here for Appy on the Annie. Obviously, Dong had a phenomenal performance on the Annie earlier in the week. Only had a handful of performances on the Annie support. Ever since the changes to the Molten Shield, it's received various nerfs, just a little bit too strong.
More than a little bit. Now it is just a little bit. It was well more than a little bit. And speaking of champions that have been hotfixed, each team has one of them. Morelli and Sol has been fixed like twice now. Has got a third one on the way.
That's true.
They certainly know what they did with this one. I would call it an abomination at a certain point in the game.
What do you think of this new, just as we let these lanes play out for a second, what do you think of this new design philosophy, it seems, from Riot, where every champion seems to get a quest now to scale up and give them something to play towards?
I like the quests. I have my gripes with the actual champion itself. Like, people should be able to buck the trend, play a style they want, but I also don't think a control mage should be able to reposition 5 times,
Yeah.
build tanky and out damage anyone else in the game. Like, I think there's just clear limits to what is fair. Having a quest is cool. I'm glad he's got one. I wish him the best, but I also don't need a global ability to murder me. Zorinus actually forces the flash out of Chippies there.
He certainly does. Very volatile matchup. Certainly is a case of timing quite well your pop and block away. But it will be PGG, at least for the very first time in this series, finding the Versed Heralds.
Oh.
Happy days for them. Let's see if it will be the classic PGG style then, of first turret into many more after.
And this is bold from Zorinus, because he knows full well that they just took the Herald. He knows full well that they're on the top side of the map, Skibby.
He certainly does, and he's going to be reminded now, you've been stunned, make it twice now. Chippy's so far away, but he'll come in for an afterthought. It is to be Appy that gets the first blood. Dongy would have loved it, but they'll take it any way they can.
Yeah, I mean, the kill's the kill. He was out of position. He was well and truly too far forwards. They're giving a blue buff to Chaz after a Herald was taken. I mean, there was nothing for him there. Violet zoned away from bottom. It's important that they try and find some kind of point of strength, but I mean, what was Zorinus doing? What's that dog doing?
Sometimes you just get mind controlled by the allure of a turret plate. Especially knowing that they had just picked up the Heralds. It looked a little bit too good to pass up on. Has paid the price. First blood goes against them. It is to be matched by Direwolves finding one in the bot lane for the point she raised just before.
Also finding a full wave in mid as well, right? For what it's worth, they did find themselves some points of strength. Level 8 for Chaz means he cannot permanently sit there and use the Breath of Light. But he's not going to be too far away from that one and should be able to get himself a pretty solid recall off soon enough. But the longer that he's able to just stay here and stabilize, get those stacks, stack up that Stardust. We'll be looking at another Drake in a minute and he's going to have 75 stacks ready to go.
He certainly will, and that's when it gets a little bit scary with the ultimate there as well. I know stacks can certainly become a bit of a nightmare. But we're not in a region where games will go to distance for like, what, 60 minutes? We'll never see, I'm sure, those half-map ultimates, but either way, it certainly is very satisfying.
Yeah, there aren't many regions that can do that anymore, go that long in the game. So you're seeing teams now poised on the top side of the map. Drake in 30 seconds, just clearing out some wards. 3 control wards in the top side river belonging to Pentanet.gg. Direwolves far more content in just trying to clear out those waves. Tongy's still in circles. Chaz is in shambles.
That's like the most comical way to go to a pause. He's like, you can't touch me, you can't touch me. Okay, we're going to a pause. Aurelion Sol cannot find the Akali. Now, we'll get word in a second as to what's gone wrong here, but for the meantime, I mean, a game state that you'd say no clear favorites, indications of what is possible. A few, maybe overexertions, feeling the need to try and make something happen, to find pressure, perhaps a calling from your bot side that, hey, you know, we can pressure this. Violet is zoned away.
Yeah.
Drag those resources elsewhere. Zoranis pays the price for it, but you certainly want to fed Jax. It's a terrifying prospect.
I think it's just the movements that we're seeing are less significant. You know, like a couple of people will move somewhere. They're not going to all-in fight for that Drake. A couple of people will move here. Violet's going to disengage and lose 2 plates as a result of this one. Also, I am quite confident that these guys are all chatting to each other and just saying mad crap.
I can tell.
Honestly, it was probably Chaz and Dongy. They were the first 2 people that we saw just giggling. Maybe they are discussing how annoying it is to deal with an Akali doing circles in a donut while you're trying to spin around.
As nice as it is that you can readjust your breath, it does go at a fairly slow projectile. Also, we saw that yesterday when trying to take the 1v1 against Voice.
Not at level 9, mate. You can stop and start it whenever you want.
That's true.
Just tap it.
That is true.
Move it around.
The old Rave Aurelion Sol.
Bit of an Aurelion Sol Rave, that's the one.
Oh, Mac is actually coming in here for a massage. Oh, I'm ready to go, mate. Does Rusty get the same luxury? Does he get the same treatment?
I don't need it, mate. I don't need it. It's all you. It's all you. You're the one yelling.
This is host privilege. We've got the best production in the region. So I suppose talk about, in this game 3, we never really got a chance to talk about the comp that you'd actually prefer. Ease of Execution is always my go-to. That's what I always love.
Yeah.
Is there one that really screams to you as an easy way, if there is self-mounted pressure? I'm not saying there is. Is there an easy way to try and find yourself across that finishing line?
I feel like an Annie comp obviously is very easy to execute first and foremost. Annie Wukong just makes a lot of sense in how they're going to be able to play team fights out together. Nah does have a bit of reliance on either a really good angle or the team setting it up prior, but all of those things are very straightforward, right? They're very bread and butter team fight engage tools or utility. So that to me is quite straightforward, and the thing that I really like as well about their composition is that Xayah can play for herself. You don't have to play aggressive, you don't have to play defensive, but no one can really kill you. You just use the ult, use the ghost, you just get out of there if people are chasing you down, and your team will do the rest of the work by themselves. So I like that flexibility in their composition as a whole. 4 people die if 1 person gets to flex it out. For the Direwolves, I actually think their execution's really high difficulty. Jarvan usually is relying on getting summoner spells first, maybe getting the flashes before he can find a successful engage. And I also think that like a Zeri being able to move around, a Rakan being able to move around, and Aurelion Sol being able to navigate these fights, the reality is they probably want to set them up themselves and engage themselves first, or it could be pretty bad. So yeah, execution, burden of execution belongs to Direwolves. Ease of execution, I would say, belongs to Pentanet, but still very much playable in these skirmishes.
With that in mind, welcome back to the Rift. We're out of the pools and back to the action. Out of the misery, which was spot the Akali in the Shroud. And back to figuring out how Direwolves can look to showcase all the mobility their comp has. Because as you mentioned during the draft phase, 5 champions, very nimble. Can they try and get away from the grasp of PGG that may just have that ease of execution?
Also able to relentlessly chase you down. That's the thing as well, right? They're so capable of just using all of those cooldowns to continue to press the attack. Pensinet doing the Drake. Dial's going to spot it.
They certainly are. Pensinet got the first dragon, and just like that, are going to find the second one as well. Direwolves never really looking at it. Much more just poking their head in, seeing what's up. And going to be focusing on farming up a treat instead. So that is exactly what they'll be doing here. Small CS leads at this point. Nothing really major to talk about. I mean, ultimately, the gold is in deadlock. We are seeing the bulk of the volatility be found here in the top side, where continuously Jax and Nara are going at it. But more than anything, I think we're just waiting for those Mythic items to come online, and there's the second one now with the Gale Force complete for Violet.
I mean, that's it, right? Direwolves happy to scale. I'm sure that Pensinet are happy to scale themselves as well, get those big item spike timings. They might have more of a preference to fight earlier, the Pensinet squad, so the fact they've got those 2 Drakes plays perfectly for them. But for the side of Direwolves, you know, Rod of Ages stacking, tier stacking, just getting those mythics up, good to go.
Look at this, a clear initiation or a clear idea that we are targeting this top lane. Chippies has had your number as the Jax. You've been bullied out of lane constantly, and you're going to be forced to use that TP to respond because those go, well, they go a few more turret plates as a result there, Herald. Comes back to lane and cops the boulder to the head.
I mean, again, the big reiteration here, just quickly, is both teams are, while happy to play calm and scale, you can see, you know, the Herald, the momentum, the flow of this game does still belong to PGG. They are controlling the pace much better. But the reality is, Direwolves don't mind too much. It's only 1,000 gold. That was a ghost used.
That was a ghost. You're thinking the play's gone. He's just going to WE out. But no, Violet Fall. Maybe there's a world in which I just say 1v2. Here we go. He did have a flash ult and ignite. But maybe not as convinced that he sees the same angle.
Zoranus once again finds himself an attack at a turret plate just prior to 14 minutes. Wants to see if you could sneak that one in. Just missed it by maybe one auto attack. You got to respect that hustle. Did use his teleport to get back to top lane though, so doesn't even have his mythic completed. Not going to be able to just purely sustain his way back through that one. And Chippy's, like you saw from him before, chucks the ult down on waves, doesn't really care. Makes sure it crashes, just pushes through. I mean, the question for me, Skimmy, is the next Drake on if Direwolves actively choose to contest that one. Because I think Pensinet will be looking for a fight at that timing. A little bit harder to find that execution, to find that way into the play if they're not fully prepared for it. So they need to set up well in advance.
But they certainly do. Because that dragon is still a while away, 2 minutes to be specific. Second Herald has now just spawned, and given that Pensinet do have the item advantage, you would imagine they'd be the ones going to that one fairly uncontested. You can see here Chaz rotating without a TP up and available. Just wants more of those stacks.
Zoranus should be fully aware of the fact that Rift Herald is going to be the port of call for Pensinet. You can see now starts to dash away once he gets a sniff of body language of aggression here from Chippies. Herald going to be free. That's 2 back-to-back Rift Heralds completely uncontested. That was 2 Drakes completely uncontested. And when we talk about how Direwolves are putting an emphasis on farming, and that stays true, it's a large emphasis now. It is a long, protracted affair in this game. But, I mean, look at the CS values, right? That above all else, Chaz 160 CS at 15 minutes. He is getting to that point in the game. Free lane, free scaling.
And perhaps a denial of an even retaliation moment. Yeah, Poltron is in a world of trouble, turns around with a Cataclysm. Dongy pounces upon Decoy. You're not running away, nor is your Jarvan. They've tried to make a play on a lonely Akali. 3v1. He calls up the backup squad, and they come in and say, we'll get the Herald, we'll get the kills, we'll deny you of avoiding us. We will come for you eventually. And Chaz can only drop the bomb and walk away himself.
What an absolute shambles, though, from Direwolves. It was a flag without the drag. He put down his E and just completely whiffed, and he's got a Rakan. Just like, first and foremost, Decoy goes in. they'll get a teleport. Poltron just says, okay, we'll head out. Misses. And then Decoy's stuck. It's like, my guy, you were my taxi.
Yeah.
And so he falls down, ends up being 2 of them that drop. And Chaz has to use his ultimate and flash to get to safety afterwards, just on the back of a mechanical mishap.
Well, we might see some more mechanics on display now, Rusty. Ward goes down. Zoranus has found Chippies in his sights. A battle of CC, a battle of damage, a battle of repositioning. Chippies leaps away. Zoranus leaps upon him and gets that 1v1 successful kill. Solo kill at just that. Right across the wall now. Jumps back across with the Lightning Crash active and is charging him down blindly. In comes Division. There is the second flag for Drag as the next target is Diani. Zap just going to miss. Same with the flag. Oh my god.
Look at Dongy on the flank. Praetor's just dashed forwards.
Yeah, in his Dongy. There is the perfect execution one more time. But unable to use it to get the kill. Warning shots more than anything here.
And it's weird because it shouldn't be nerves. I don't think they have a reason to be nervous, but there's so many mechanical little mistakes that are starting to compound into real errors. And you're seeing most of them from the Direwolf side. No one else. The Drake will be started by them. It does feel like they've earned themselves the objective at the very least, and they will be able to take this one down. Quick shout outs to Zoranus though, as the primary reason for that, right? Gets the solo kill in top lane, teleports in, and just left dealing with top lane is Chippies. We'll see this skirmish one more time. It's kind of just the standard Jax playbook. Is go in whenever you have Counter-Strike up. Chippies is the one who actually takes this play, and the second his ult goes in, has a full combo, has realized he doesn't have lethal damage because Jack's got an auto attack off with the ult, so proc the resistances. He's just done for. This is a bet that Chippy's made, and now he is forced to lie in it.
Yeah, unfortunately, nowhere else to run. And the Jax that says you missed your chance to strike. So I won't hesitate to take you down. And that really was the first kill of the game here for Direwolf. A very calm affair when it's come to the kill count. 4 and 19 minutes. Let's then check in with the overall goal to see where those resources are. And it certainly is all about those top laners.
Without a doubt it is. It just feels like every single lane is holding hands through that gold value right now, right? Top lane is matched. Praetor now sneaks up a little bit with some extra money, but very much next to Violet. Mid lane is matched in their overall gold. It actually is just 2x2 the whole way down. It's Noah's Ark.
Certainly not too many major divides to really separate the pack. I feel like if anything that's
Abby.
found in the jungle and support. And Appy is the target. And unfortunately for him, nobody was there to back him up. No one was coming to help. Direwolves will certainly strike without hesitation.
That's maybe the 3rd time now, though, that Appy's been the one who's been caught out of position. It's the first time he's died, but it is the 3rd time that he's been caught out of position. Direwolves starting to wrestle this game back just a little bit more in their favor, piece by piece. Seems like Poltron is maybe 50 gold off an item because he just gave a minion away, Chaz, to their jungler. Contesting the Krugs now, however.
Nothing is free as they rotate at such a rapid pace.
Speaking of nothing is free.
Well, here we go. 1v3. This time the shoe's on the other foot. It's Zoranus up against them all. How does he fare? Not well is the answer. Stongy just hits them with the ultimate. And the lights go out.
This game's getting sloppy. This game is getting very sloppy. Both deaths from Zoranus. He was caught in a side lane, far too extended by himself. The reinforcements from Pensnet were there. The rest of his team just showed top lane to look for a play at the Krugs and to catch that wave. And On Vision knows that. Still goes for the wave, dies for the wave. That's twice now.
Red team's turret has been destroyed.
How many times can you forgive him for mistakes like that in a game 3 of a series?
Certainly is starting to prove to be costly. And it is, at this point now, creating a very small divide between these two teams. BGG starting to creep up to 3k gold. Still, what we mentioned before, though, is the majority of those resource differences were found in both jungle and support. So still feels like a very evenly matched game.
Mind you, now's a pretty good timing to look for some skirmishes involving Chippies in the mix because he's just finished that Black Cleaver. Second item starting to be done a little bit more across the board here, however, for everybody, right? Chaz with a whole lot of CS in his pockets. has gone for the Rylai second into a needlessly large rod. Also has the Skies Descend. It's no longer just a falling star. It's quite a large impact in a team fight and skirmish. And should be ready to rumble in the next minute when the Drake spawns and Dire will start to drag their attention back towards the bottom side of the map. You would expect to have their Aurelion Soul there and poised to fight. For the side of Pensinet, same thing to be said, right? We just spoke about the Black Cleaver for Chippies. He is quite a large Gnar. Team fight's on the cards.
As it should be. A minute for that Dragon. Baron is always there. And items are starting to be matched across the board. Make sure that neither side has a huge advantage going into this one. Obviously, Kimtech map does open up a few extra possibilities with improved vision, better engage angles, and obviously a whole host of sustain as well from one poor trade. But we find ourselves once again converging on the mid lane.
I think it would be a really good timing for Direwolves here to recognize they've got 2 items on both of their carries and their top laner compared to what is probably a needed recall from Violet to get the second item done. A very quick blades from the looks of it.
Yeah, Dong in a similar situation himself.
Yeah, so in regards to these item spike timings, I mean, I think it's actually a pretty good moment for the Direwolves to look for this 5v5. They're just going to straight run down mid instead. Not a bad call.
Not a bad call at all. They can find 2 turrets like this. It's a little bit too easy.
Bring PGG to them. Certainly a way you can play this game out. Control zones like you're seeing Chippies. Look at him, 80% of the way to being Mega Gnar.
He is.
Dongy.
Dongy wanting to try and keep them interested right now as they jump upon Chippies. But that's a perfect position for a Gnar to jump in. So the Cataclysm has to be forced out. He's going to hop on through. He has flash, but Direwolves is starting to scurry in Junction. Fire Wukong ult #1. Lock them in place and knock them up. He's managed to peel away, but Zonus has now come in to find 2, and there it is! The star falls all the way down and just explodes these members.
That was an absolutely insane ultimate from Chaz, and we'll have to watch it again in the replay because the reason that's nuts is it cancels Akali having lethal damage onto him, and it seems like it's picked up a second with the shockwave. So he wasn't even prepared for that second one. First and foremost, really nicely done by Poltron. Uses the Cataclysm, has to waste the ultimate, yes, but locks Chippies in, prevents the jump, flag drags out. You can see they were so afraid of that happening. Collapse comes through, and they just go hard for it. And just watch Dongy here, because he goes straight onto the Aurelion Soul. He's about to have a double kill. Gets cancelled, gets killed, and then a second person falls from that one. So the residual damage from Chaz will be chuffed. Still ultimately Pensinet. They will get some kills and they'll be okay.
Yeah, the knock-up portion of that ultimate, so frustrating to deal with. And it certainly meant that their item advantage did actually merit something worthwhile. They forced PG to fight them. Yep, you can have your dragon. But we will certainly win out on that skirmish as well. Only 11 kills between them. And still, once again, a really even match. Barely anything separating these two teams now, 41k apiece.
Certainly a fantastic game 3 to say the least with what we're starting to see here. You know, the Direwolves team ramping up, Pensinet starting to feel a little bit of pressure, but still so much damage belongs to their composition. And remember the big thing we said in Champion Select as well. There is no shortage of damage across the teams here. Not a lot of tankiness, mostly bruises, mostly carries, and so much damage that it is all about execution. It's all about setup and it's all about how you make those engages happen. So at any point, especially in an even game state, it is anyone's game to win and anyone's game to lose.
Well, for PGG, it's all about drawing this Jax up to their side of the map. Zoranus does have the TP available, but is holding his nerve for the meantime. He's going to be forced out because PGG are showing no signs of slowing down on this Baron. Down to 4k. HP. It's getting close to that smite range. It's going to force Direwolves to do something. Look at Dongy. I haven't spotted them just yet, and in they go now. Lightning Crash active. Everybody locked in place for that Cataclysm. Dongy in trouble, 2-man shove. Gnar's done his job. 2 members found so far for
Look at the Aurelion Soul though.
But the Aurelion Soul completely untouched in the backline. And Predator is hitting them with lightning-infused bullets.
2 members drop, but what is the cost of those 2 members falling? It seems like just so much more HP remains for the Direwolves squad. Baron's not going to be a factor. And so after this reset, they'll have 10 seconds to work with, right? Where Pensinet will have a numerical advantage. But at the end of the day, they'll get 2 kills, they'll lose a turret in mid lane. And it ultimately does feel like it's just going to be an even trade. Really nicely done by the side of Pensinet to stop Zoranus from getting in with the counter-strike. And it looks like he's the target, but he has a stopwatch, so he'll persevere and he'll survive through it. Dongi does the same thing, distracting on the other side. Big Gnar ultimate from Chippies as well, to be fair. But at this point, there is just a giant singularity between Chaz, Praedyth, and the rest of the Pensinet squad, and they have no choice but to run away. They are starting to suffer to the damage of the Aurelion Sol and the Zeri.
It's starting to come online, isn't it? The late game power.
You know what this feels like as well, Skimmy? It's a quieter game from Violet. You know, someone that we've spoken about constantly. He went into game 2 and he played his part, but it felt like a Chippies game.
Yep.
Same thing can be said here. You know, 1-1-3 has just been kind of very muted and kept at bay. The team of Pensinet have not been playing around their AD carry at all. The draft is not based around him.
Nice.
Yeah.
Certainly has been a draft force for Violet to be fairly self-sufficient. His ultimate is up and available in about 10 seconds now as well. And Dongi once again hiding out of vision. Baron in a familiar spot, down to 2k. Not Baron range, or not Smite range rather just yet. Ultron jumps the gun, goes in too early. Zoran is threatening from the top side of the river. And Decoy says, it's my time to strike. Goes in with the quickness. Doesn't find a charm. No! They've done it! Direwolves have found the Baron. And now can they try and disengage away? No, they just want to fight themselves into this victory. Chaz just explodes onto Appy with a one-man ult.
The Baron recall successful as well from Zoranus, right under the noses of the Pensinet squad. Drake to disengage towards, and you've been seeing this happen. We've been saying this all game. It's been mounting piece by piece. They're getting their items. They're feeling stronger. And now they have the Baron buff. They have the second Drake in the game. And twice in a row with the Baron pit, Pensinet feeling pressured, have suffered to the hands of this Aurelion Sol, who hits a huge combo. The biggest thing here is that Pensinet aren't looking for the Baron play. They're pushed out by this Rakan. And so it's just turn and burn situation for the Direwolves camp. No Smite going to be in range. Dongi gets pushed out immediately by the damage from Praedyth, and meanwhile, just hitting a massive Starfall and just breathing on them. Chaz cannot be stopped.
Certainly cannot be. Despite Dongi's best attempts to try and be a nuisance in the backline there. Just doesn't have enough single-handedly to try and remove a key character. As a result now, it looks a little bit different when we check in with that overall goal. Chaz now at the top of the table, close to 13k. Has been given that free laning phase. And in the 15 minutes after, has been given a wealth of resources to become an absolute menace. Close to level 18, evolution on the ultimate. This one's going to hurt.
He's close to the death cap as well. They might even want to consider getting him that death cap so that he can teleport back in before the fight. Schönfire just playing with Poltron and Decoy over there.
Yeah, completely on his own. Doesn't have a flash, just going to die for free. Yeah, Praedyth finds it.
So does the turret in bottom lane, right? Completely dead. Chaz chasing forwards. Violet has to Gale Force out mid.
Oh, meanwhile, what's happening here? Oh, Chippies has died the 1-for-1. The Baron-inspired team of Direwolves. They're getting it done so far. Dongi, he needs to find his kill, and he will do so successfully. But our attention gets turned right back to the bot lane as Direwolves continue to press on forward. And they will at least claim one inhibitor.
And Pensinet just kaboom. Just in one fell swoop, everything goes wrong. Schönfire is trying to find angles that aren't really there. They don't want to let the Baron play its course. And I mean, to bring this back, it feels like Pensinet must be pressured. They must feel like they are being outscaled. No matter what happens in this game, they're feeling this need to make these plays. But now we're at a point where you see what happens when they look. It's dissipated before it even gets to exist. And once again, the skies descend upon Pensinet. And they had no shot to win these skirmishes. Mid lane as well. Chippies was half HP. It's a simple dive from Zoranus. This works out okay because Dongi's in the area and can blast cone half the map with this map. But that was still a really nice kill from Zoranus. Really stamping his foot down in this 1v1.
Certainly did. Guarantees the stun with the flash there. Make sure that his team will find success with that Baron play. And once again, what feels like the umpteenth time this game, the gold swings the other way, back towards Direwolves, who have prevented PGG from finding that soul point. And he's managed to wrangle control of that Dragon Pit at least 2 times successfully. And denied a possibility of a flip of an Elder anytime soon.
We've said this in game number 1, but a very long series here between Direwolves and Pensinet. The average game time skewed so high between both of these teams, both times they faced each other as well. And now 32 minutes into this one, knowing that the games run late, the team that has just insane scaling now starts to knock on the door of Pensinet and threaten to get that 2-1 victory right now. Death cap done for the Aurelion Soul as well. Items completed across the board. Important thing to highlight is still that Pensinet have damage. They still have an insane amount of kill threat, but their jungler is caught.
Yeah, it is Schönfire once again trying to find those angles, trying to find those ways into the fight, but it's the first one getting jumped upon. Predator says it's my time to shine. Goes for the one-man ultimate, and still, you're not safe even if you are running back towards your base. BGG slowly getting told that this game is not theirs to take.
Pushes them back. Violet's still going to be there to clear the waves out. However, bot lane covered by Chippies as well. Just throwing a couple of pot shots in there, but ultimately with 40 seconds until the Drake, and it is only going to be the third Drake if Direwolves pick this one up. Pensinet can always look for a little bit of a sneak or a steal, but if they do so, I mean, they run the risk of losing the entire game, and Nexus exposed, right, with supers pushing in bottom lane. They have to be careful. Let's see how Pensinet choose to play this out.
Certainly would be a gamble, but you can't afford to turtle forever. They've got to find some way to be back on the aggressive. Some way to exert all the damage they do have without being caught out in a one-man stance.
Maybe he does have that flash tippers to play. Schönfire can look for those angles, but look how difficult it is to get through. Just the second Aurelion Soul presses E. Covers 3/4 of the mid lane now.
It's just consistently growing, isn't it? More Stardust, more control. Shreller's actually being used there by Decoy, just toying at the idea of jumping into the river to make their strike happen.
Looking for Haps for the Jax, but they force themselves into the river. Dongi going to try and find Zoranus. Zoranus does not care. He has no teleport though if a fight were to break out.
Zoranus is just going to try to end the game, seemingly, trying to force them back to
Watch
base.
Direwolves try and go for this engage perhaps the second that Zoranus shows. Drake at 4K, ult on.
Ult is on, there is the shockwave, there's the kill. One shot into Appy, didn't even get a chance to use tippers. They don't even get the Dragon Rusty, it gets stolen away. Meanwhile, inside the base, it's falling. PGG, they had to do something, but the decision-making has not worked their way. Direwolves, too cool, calm and collected. Violet trying to be an absolute menace, but he can't find that second. Now Chippy's in a dream, the sole survivor, but another flash forced to try and keep him down. And Chippies has just pulled a rabbit out of a hat.
I think the fact that Chippies has just solo killed Zoranus in the base saves the Nexus. The fact that Violet almost 1v3s, kills both carries down there as well, saves the game. The individual heroism of Pensinet.gg keeps them with a fighting chance in this series. But you watch this skirmish one more time, quite simply Chaz presses R, and it is just doomed from the forefront. Look how much space that covers. No way Chippies can get into the fold. Decoy just goes straight onto the flanking member of Dongi, and this Akali does not get to play League of Legends. Schönfire just gets life breathed upon him, but Chippies teleports mid-team fight. He recognizes where he needs to go. And look at the work Violet does. Gale Forces dodges out of the Rakan W, flashes straight in, knows his only cause there was to take everyone with him. And the martyr, the hero for the team, and Chippies comes in clutch just as much.
Absolutely so. Didn't want to repeat of that 1v1 that happened in mid lane before, and is able to prolong this game just a fraction longer. You thought for a second Direwolves had done it. Meticulous in their approach to that dragon. So well executed in forcing through anxiety more than anything for PGG, knowing that their base was about to fall on down. Will that time go to waste?
And look at all the summoner spells that are missing here as well, right? You take stock check on all of the flashes gone. Only Schönfire has one, and only Decoy has one on this entire map. So many viable targets for engagers now if they find their angle. Poltron has the perfect angle here as Baron.
Look at the damage.
Being flipped again.
It is. In they go. This time it goes the way of Pensinet.
Poltron gone.
Appy is going to blast cone in, look for the tippers. Hasn't found his moment just yet. He doesn't have the flash. But as you say, Poltron is already dead. Now PGG 5v4 with a Baron. I'm going to say, forget these lane states.
You've got to kill the direwolves.
Look at direwolves. They're not afraid. They're still threatening for this 4v5. Remember, they just took a 4v5, and they were almost winning that one. Pensnet are the team that feel a little bit more confused. Where do they play? What do they do? They've lost their mid lane priority. They can clear bottom. They can push top, but they're not going to gain anything fruitful from this. They're just going to create more space for a further opportunity. But now they will have a couple of minutes, Skimmy, to try and use this Baron buff to get something in the map. Against the grain, but only 2,000 gold behind. They can still win this game.
They certainly can. No doubt frustrated they were unable to find anything right off the back of taking down Poltron. But a reset. Have a chance to purchase some items as we do start to approach full builds for a lot of these individuals. And a Baron that will need to find success because then that leads into the decider, right? 6 dragons between these teams have been taken. Not to say that is what's going to end this game. But certainly going to force a team fight to occur.
And I mean, it's another minute with this Baron buff, and it's a minute 20 until the Drake, so they can try and set up those waves, set up the map state to grant them safe passive, at the very least, towards the Drake pit. See if they can get themselves the soul. Oh, that is going to be a 4 Chem Drake. Chem Soul Direwolves.
Yeah. They seem to be very good at getting 4 in a row.
Direwolves still finding space on the map. Violet is a genuine threat still. Both AD carries truthfully are. But it just feels like they're handling Dongy. You know, that's the major difference here. If you look at all the carries on this team, Dongy's now down 140 CS. He's so far behind that mid laner of Direwolves. And he shows up into a team fight, gets Rakan ulted, and dies before he can even blink.
And you can clearly see the difference between his items versus the Aurelion Soul, right? Everything's been given to Chaz to succeed in this game. And he's been sitting on 6 items for a fair few minutes now.
The good news is, Dongy's job is simple. He may be behind, but he can still try and assassinate someone. If he can take someone with him, I think that's a comprehensive win. It's just that you have to somehow deal with Chaz, somehow deal with Praetor. Violet is the star of the show for exactly that. That was 3 auto attacks, and Praetor felt it.
That's a Zoranus TP.
They don't know he's there.
I have no idea that ward was just about to expire.
Has the flash with the counter-strike. They could find an angle
Dragon's
here.
gone. Zoranus going to go
They
for the
spot
fake
him
check.
now.
He's going to jump in and find the biggest stun you'll ever see. 3 members locked in place. Down
Oh my
goes the
God.
knock-up. Oh my god. Aurelion Soul's not balanced. Look at the HP shred. Zoranus forced to run away, but Violet runs him down. These AD carries just do an unholy amount of damage at this point.
That's a 1-for-2 trade favorable for Pensnet. They get the soul. They get a massive ultimate just littered onto their heads, but they walk away with the advantage. I mean, we'll watch it again. It's very simple. They'll find a Jax, surprise, he's here, stuns Appy and tries to create distance away. Huge ultimate hits every single one of them, but they just couldn't get the kills to follow up fast enough. They just couldn't get them fast enough, and that is something that the Chemtech Soul is going to be invaluable for, right? They tick over to that half HP value, and then they're just so hard to kill.
Yeah, all that extra mitigation for free as a result of being down and low in those fights may actually be the best soul for them. For PGG, given that they are up against a very strong opponent at this late stage, 40 minutes in. You mentioned it before, right? All these games so far have been done by around 20 to 25 minutes. We've had 2 that have gone all the way to this point now. And Chippies has actually elected to buy the Hull Breaker.
Yeah, he knows what he wants. He wants to be a split push threat. He wants to be able to deal with the Jax at the very least, those extra resistances when he's by himself in a side lane. A bit of a peculiar purchase, but it is cheap and it provides a whole lot for its cost.
This feels like a really hard game to call now.
It's been a hard game to call from minute 1. They've been 1,000 gold behind, or maybe 2,000 gold behind at most. It stretched out to roughly 6, but it was brought back just as quick. However, there is infinite scaling for an Aurelion Soul.
True.
My man's is questing.
But it's Violet, the one to move first. The one to be the most advanced here as we once again find ourselves in an A-ramp.
It's a fight for mid priority. They want to clear the wave from the other person's mid wave. No pushing allowed, but Praetor is being humbled by Violet at every single turn, but Zorinus has cleared the wave. Poltron's out to safety. Meganar ticks over here for Chippies as well. 1 minion. It's dead. Bot wave has got Chaz, though. They are going to look for that inhibitor.
He's going to force Pentanet to go back to base first, knowing that they did lose that inhibitor in the bot lane. They cannot continue to try and trade up at this late stage with one Nexus turret gone and a second down to 50%. That would just be griefing.
And all of the summoner spells are back, something that was missing in that last little skirmish. Bar Appy, of course, who doesn't have his flash, nor Poltron. We're starting to get those flashes back. Teleport going to be used to mid lane. The turret is dead.
Denied.
So the teleport is not going to be used to mid lane. They're going to push bottom. They're going to push bottom. 4 people strong. Poltron in the wings.
This is looking like the conclusion for
They're just going to end the game in their
He's
face.
just going to end the game, saying you're taking too long to answer back. Praetor's got one idea in mind. Hit this Nexus, flash for it, and guarantee it. And I'll tell you what a way to find your victory up against your rivals in PGG. They have beaten you at every single turn. You take a day off, you verse another team, you come back for the rematch, and you end it like that.
The Dire Wolves just stay bottom, and they just wait for Pentanet to show in mid. The second they show in mid, there's only one Nexus turret standing. And they just kick down the door. It felt like a very casual win in the end. You've got an Aurelion Soul throwing his ult out, and it's not for a combo, so he can flash closer to the Nexus to auto-attack it. Because the whole team was like, that's it. We are ending this game at all costs right now.
The Lich Bane Aurelion Soul for the extra auto-attack damage at that point.
Yeah, I don't think that was the way we expected that game to end.
No.
Max and I were like waiting for that one big team fight to happen, and then, you know, someone just comes out on top. But, oh, what a game. That was an ender to a bloody beautiful series. And Direwolves not only get revenge, but they are going to be going through Group A as the top seed into the playoffs and get to play the loser of the next game today. But look, oh, that one was crazy. That was crazy. ASOL coming through as well. We were a little bit like, oh, what's going to go down? This is kind of like unknown territory for the LCO with teams of this caliber. And it worked. There was some big ults that game.
Yeah, and if this is an indication of playoffs to come, like, it's absolutely insane. Like, every single game that series was a banger. And that third one especially, no amount of scrims can ever prepare you for what just happened to end that game. Like, we were sitting backstage, and like you said, Mac, we were waiting for a massive team fight to happen. We got so many of them this game, right? As we're seeing now, there were so many team fights that were so close that could have been the game deciders, ultimately ending in that back door, though. And I think it just goes to show that, you know, both of these teams are capable with their leads to really run away with the game, and then they pull it back. You know, it's always this give and take, and it's every single team fight is a new chance for a team to come out ahead. I do want to highlight the Aurelion Soul pick, and I think that Chaz especially, Game 1 and Game 3, both Direwolves wins, just absolutely key to their success. We saw so many ultimates this game, just one-shotting people from across the map, right? Picking up kills left, right, and center. We talked at the start of the day how we weren't really expecting to see it, but boy did we see it today.
Yeah, and I'm glad we did as well. Now, the crazy scenes as well. This one, Violet almost going for the 1v3 angle. If he got that kill onto Chaz, there was a big world where that one worked out for him as well. Look, shout out to Chippies. He inevitably just made the game a little bit longer, but he could have saved it. You know, theoretically at that point, that was where things started to turn around. PGG get Baron, PGG start to shove those waves, get a little bit of prio. And then this one as well. Zorinus obviously not seen with that flank angle on the TP. Decent stun. And that set up for the team fight. The fact that there was only 3 kills when there was like all 10 within like a pixel of the bloody map there. Insane. Anyway, let's have a quick look. Chaz sold his boots towards the end to get that 6th item online as well. Didn't feel like he needed the movement speed because he can just fly everywhere. I guess that's a little bonus. And look at that damage as well. 38.1k from Chaz. And then on the other side, Violet just smurfing 32.4. Respectively and respectably. Then look at the goal graph. It's been a while since we've seen a goal graph coming back to even at the end of a game.
But you see just how evenly matched they are, right? Because the Gold League never escaped a 5k buffer. So it was always going up and down, but it's so close throughout the entirety of that one. And you're just thinking at any given moment, any team can take this. And the fact that I think it came down to them just hanging out in the bot lane and going, hang on a minute, they've got 1 Nexus turret remaining. That's already quite low. You saw how quickly we can take these objectives. Let's just end.
The goal graph looking kind of like what my heart rate monitor would look like as well. You know, just like, whoa, the whole game a little bit low. It's like, oh, well, Direwolves have this. And then it's like, whoa, wait, do they have it? And And they did in the end. So crazy scenes. And that means PGG is now in... going to play the winner of the next game too. So that puts them in a pretty bit of dangerous territory.
Dicey situation, potentially for the next best of, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly could be. Now, look, we've got a quick interview with a handsome gentleman coming through here. It is Big Z from the top lane. Zoranus, mate, how does that one taste? It was a little bit scary at the start, a little bit scary during the series. How are the nerves?
Look, to be honest, like, I wasn't that nervous throughout the game. I was kind of inting, to be fair, but, like, because I was running it down, you know, the burden wasn't really on me to carry that game. So I wasn't that nervous, but I don't know how the team was feeling, like, after we almost end and they start coming back.
So walk us through that ending, right? Because we were sitting backstage, our hearts were beating, we had no idea what was going on. Who made the call? Who's just like, yeah, let's just go and end the game?
So basically, we didn't want to give them mid-wave, and we realized that Nine inside track on mid, and then Praedith just made the call, okay, end the game through bot. We just fully censored and ended the game.
At that point, you feel like you've got enough damage as well. Now, there was a couple of crazy team fights in there. What was going through your mind in that one where you had that TP to try and deny the soul? They got the soul, and then you had like 4 of the enemy team just running at you straight in your face. You just had to rip the Counter-Strike jump on them. What were you thinking at that moment? Were you just like, we just got to go?
Well, at the time, I thought it was a good flank. But then after I jump and we stun them, we Aurelion Sol ult their entire team, but then we still lost the fight. And then, so I don't really know what happened. But yeah, after the fight, I was surprised to see we still lost it, even though like we had a 5-man ace ult.
And look, a quick one as well before we let you go. We do have Chiefs and Bliss coming up as the next game tonight. Who do you think wins that one? Do you think Bliss are going to get some revenge? And also, who would you like to be playing in that first round of the playoffs?
I think Chiefs will probably come up with the win today. But to be fair, I don't really mind Tuiverse in the first game because the next stage is double elimination anyway, so we do have to play pretty much like all the teams, right? We have to beat 2 teams to make it anyway, so I'm not too concerned whoever we verse, we just got to win.
And on that note, Zoranus, look, we'll let you go. Thank you for the interview. Go enjoy the win. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Great interview. Great little bit of insight. Lots of happiness. You could tell by his big old smile there as well. And that's got to taste real damn sweet, getting your revenge to get a better seed in the playoffs.
It's got to feel good to be able to run it down and still win a game like that, huh? As you heard every first, like, wasn't his job to carry, so I ran it down.
Yeah. But on that first, was it first flood where he ran down and got a little bit too happy when the Herald was taken? Max was sitting here. It was just like, yeah, Rusty's not going to be too happy about that one. And then you instantly start tearing it. Yeah, look a little bit out of position. What was he thinking? I don't know. Anyway.
Am I that predictable?
He's got like the bingo card. He's like, Rusty ran.
I was playing against the Bree Fury yesterday. He was like, oh, you just roasted me on air. I was like, I did that? It just comes out of me.
Second nature.
Yeah.
It just happens. It's part of the job. And your job is to pick the Dare MVP. Let's see who you chose for the Dare MVP today. And it was Chaz, who went huge in the first game, huge in the third game. A little bit of a hiccup in the middle, but we don't want to talk about that. And look, 16, 5, and 15 with 81% KP across all 3 games. That is gold.
It's hard to look past Chaz, I feel like, in this series, particularly from the impact of the third game for everybody. But like, you know, Decoy had such a good first game with Praedith. I feel like there was moments from everybody in the team. Top lane was like this crazy 1v1 where they have their own individual MVP just because they were solo killing each other the whole time. But Chaz probably the best overall choice for sure.
33% of the damage share is insane. And I'm 1/4 of the couch, and the couch is disappearing because we've got a second game to get to. Menu log meal time after this. We'll see you in just a couple of.
Zoranus going to go for the fake check. He's going to jump in and find the biggest stun you'll ever see. 3 members locked in place. Down goes the knock up. Oh my god. Aurelion Sol's not balanced. Look at the HP shred. Zoranus forced to run away.